I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. The date is January 6th, 2023. We are at a very, very grim milestone in our nation's history and a grim day in history today in the House of Representatives. It is 2 years since insurrectionists stormed our Capitol building at the behest of Donald Trump and a number of members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, MAGA extremists, trying to topple our democracy, thanks to the bravery and the courage of the Capitol police officers, the Metropolitan police officers, the Secret Service. We've managed to save our democracy. And what you are watching now is the clerk of the House. We are on day 4, and the prayers are beginning. Let's go to the morning prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the proceedings on day 4 at the House of Representatives. We have went through 11 roll call votes thus far, and Kevin McCarthy has lost each and every one of them and is expected to lose again today. Let's go to the House floor.
Strength to be found only in you. Come alongside us and show your mercy on the American people as they and we approach today with a host of feelings. The abiding emotional and spiritual unease stemming from the memory of inconceivable unrest in these chambers 2 years ago. The exhausting frustration over the prolonged impasse in the deliberations that obscures the way ahead. The fear that resides in the hearts of families and staffers, communities and constituents who are affected by the lack of resources and security, while this legislative body remains unseated. We wait in hope for you, O God, for you are our help and shield. And in you we will find reason to rejoice, for despite all that makes today today, we trust in you. May your unfailing love rest upon us, for it is in your sovereign name we pray. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Representatives-elect are invited to join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Clerk, a point of order. There's not a quorum present.
The gentlewoman makes a point of order that a quorum is not present. The chair will count for a quorum.
So that was Elise Stefanik, who is aligned with Kevin McCarthy. She is a MAGA Republican who also sold her soul to Trump MAGA extremism. She ran as a moderate, but has been anything but. And her and Kevin McCarthy are now seeing the chickens come home to roost, as the MAGA extremists who they tried to appease have now turned on them. Elise Stefanik took the microphone and said that there was not a quorum, meaning there was not enough people for any proceedings to even take place. That's how disorganized it is in the House of Representatives right now. And so what the clerk said is that they will begin a count, which usually just means they're buying time for members of Congress who are late. But as you see, the Democratic side, it looks like all of the Democrats are there, and it looks like the empty seats are in the Republican side. So as they're late or trickling in. But let me tell you what we know as of now. It still appears that Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes. As I was saying yesterday, there's been reporting here and there that a deal's been made and Kevin McCarthy is going to be able to secure it. And as I've been saying, that's Kevin McCarthy is telling that to the large media networks who are just writing what he tells them. That's been his strategy to gaslight and just continue to lie throughout the day. And indeed, it appears that Kevin McCarthy doesn't have the votes. Not only that, but that two members of the Republican side that support Kevin McCarthy actually have to return home. Let's pull up the Politico playbook, which is just talking about what's been going on in the past 48 hours, the low morale on the Republican side. But they write, around Christmas, Texas Republican Representative Roger Williams' wife suffered a medical emergency this week as she underwent treatment. Her husband was eager to be by her side. Instead, he has been stuck in Washington, taking failed vote after failed vote in Kevin McCarthy's quest to become Speaker. Quote, "This is killing him," one of Williams' GOP lawmaker friends told us late Thursday night. "I've never seen Roger as down as he was yesterday." Williams isn't alone. On Thursday, Representative Ken Buck, Republican of Colorado, felt ill. His colleagues had to convince him it was okay to duck out of the speakership drama and go home for rest. Representative-elect Wesley Hunt, Republican of Texas, is eager to return to Texas after his wife gave birth this week, and Representative Kevin Hearn's mother died this week. He wants to attend the funeral on Saturday. Politico goes on to say, today, a push for clarity. On Thursday, Representative Ann Wagner, a Missouri Republican known for her candor, told McCarthy he owes his members an explanation about what's going on, voicing frustration many are feeling. We caught up with her late last night just off the House floor, and she told us that she presented the GOP leader with the names of more than 80 Republicans who agreed with her and demanded a conference meeting. McCarthy only partially relented. He agreed to host a conference call this morning on which he'll walk through the state of play of his negotiations with his detractors. Quote, that's a bit cowardly, if you ask me, Wagner said of his decision to do a call instead of facing this conference face to face. We are all human beings, she continued, arguing that keeping members in Washington day after day without showing progress is not sustainable. Meanwhile, senior Republicans are increasingly whispering that if McCarthy can't wrap this up soon, he needs to step aside and let someone else try. On Thursday, we spoke to one top Republican backing him who is thinking of confronting McCarthy himself on the topic. You would think that this would be the types of conversations that would have taken place months ago, but this is the state of play. When you ask insurrectionists to govern, they do what insurrectionists do, which is to destroy our government. And we're here 2 years on the harrowing anniversary, January 6, 2021, a date that will live in infamy, when a fascist traitor, Donald Trump, tried to overthrow our democracy with the help of the insurrectionist Republicans who are humiliating and embarrassing us, the United States of America, the House of Representatives, to the world right now. And from all of the reporting that we've seen this morning, Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes. We are 11 roll call votes and 4 days into these proceedings. Kevin McCarthy has lost each round, and there has been more detractors round after round. Meanwhile, we've seen the insurrectionist traitor, Donald Trump, posting a number of despicable and disgusting things. This was a photo that he had published. It's a cartoon picture of himself at the speakers, acting like he's the Speaker of the House, and he posted this on his social media platform, even though he secured 1 vote from Matt Gaetz. There's the photo right there. I mean, just how humiliating and embarrassing can you be? I mean, yes, it reeks of desperation, but like from the international stage, let's go back to the House floor. Let's see if we have a quorum.
Members present. A quorum is present. The question recurs upon the election of a speaker. The tellers will please come forward and take their seats.
want you up there.
So now the question we're waiting for is, are we going to have roll call vote number 12? And is Kevin McCarthy going to lose for the 12th time? And is there going to be more defectors, or is there going to be some development here based on all of the reporting that we're seeing? We don't believe that to be the case. We believe Kevin McCarthy is going to lose again. It is possible that there may be more supporters from the group of detractors who may go to McCarthy, but those defectors, detractors, whatever you want to call them, they've been pretty strong in not supporting Kevin McCarthy and making it clear, and specifically as you look at Biggs and Gates and Gosar and Perry and Roy, they've said, and Boebert, they've all said under no circumstance, that's 5, are they supporting Kevin McCarthy. So let's go back to the House floor and see what they're doing. So they're going to nominate Kevin McCarthy again, it looks like. And are they going to give the same humiliating speech? Let's see.
And while I rise to that end, I think it's critically important to note that this is actually not about Kevin McCarthy. Kevin is a good man. He's a man of God. He's a patriot. He's a leader who has led this conference to our current majority over the last 4 years. Those things are unassailable. But this isn't about him. This isn't about Kevin McCarthy. I put no single human being on a pedestal, and certainly not before God and not before the gift that he has blessed us with this grand experiment that we call the United States of America. This isn't about Kevin McCarthy, but the matters before us are of stupendous magnitude. A federal republic such as ours, it's a dynamically unstable one. It's a wobbly top that's just a few mere revolutions away from falling
Mike
down
Garcia,
at any given
who you're
moment,
watching, objected
except for the
to the
exertions of
electoral
men and
count.
women
He tried to
who are
overthrow
willing
our
to serve her
democracy
with pure
for
and
Donald
selfless
Trump. So
intent,
you're looking at an
just as our
insurrectionist. So
founding
while he
fathers
tries
did,
to
just as
gaslight
Abraham
you,
Lincoln and
I will
Ronald
just
Reagan did
point
with
out, and while
pure
he
and
mentions
selfless
Abraham
intent.
Lincoln and Ronald
And as our
Reagan,
nation today
he
and over the
objected
last
to the
2
electoral
years
count
has
vote. So
seen, we are
you're looking at
certainly
an
a
insurrectionist
wobbly top.
traitor right now.
Today, we have a southern border that is wide open. As a result of that, and as a result of our executive branch policies, today, 200 fellow Americans will die of fentanyl poisoning, and roughly 5,000 illegal immigrants will be victims of human smuggling. Today, our nation's debt is $31 trillion, and that will go up, just in this day alone, by roughly $2.1 billion. Today, we are seeing one of the worst crime spikes in our nation's history. Our law enforcement are direly underfunded, and they are hurting. And on that topic, I want to thank our law enforcement. I want to especially thank the Capitol Hill Police for what they do. We thank them not only for what they've done.
You're looking at someone who inspired the insurrection, who inspired attacks on law enforcement, who inspired people to try to kill the Capitol Police. That's the utmost gaslighting right there. You're looking at a traitor. How dare he invoke Capitol police officers, metropolitan police officers? He tried to kill the police officers. The person you're watching, Representative Garcia, tried to kill the police officers.
Our police also serve with that pure and selfless intent. They do it every day, and we should thank them every day. Today, the Chinese Communist Party will orchestrate the theft of another $1 billion of intellectual property from American companies.
Donald Trump has
And the
a
Chinese
Chinese
Communist
bank
Party is
account,
still
paid
today
more
not being held
taxes in
accountable
China
for the
than in
deaths
the
of
United
millions of
States
people
of
around
America.
this planet, deaths as a result of a genocide within their borders, and deaths as a result of COVID outside them. We are today losing on multiple fronts against China. So
For
today
those
isn't about a
watching
single
here, we
human
throw
being.
up
It's
the
not
clown
about Kevin
emojis.
McCarthy. It's about the 13
we
Gold
see
Star
clowns like this.
families who still suffer today mercifully without closure and without accountability after the unnecessary loss of their loved ones in Afghanistan over a year ago. And today, speaking of our military, today roughly 40 active duty and veterans of our military will commit suicide. These, Madam Clerk, these are the matters of stupendous magnitude. This isn't about a man in a suit in the halls of Congress. It's about 330 million Americans. It's about the preservation of the Constitution and the liberties guaranteed therein. It's about the 246 years of pride and providence that we have enjoyed as a nation. And above all things, it's about ensuring that this beautiful journey exists for generations to come. That doesn't happen if we don't address and rise above the multiple existential crises that we experience today. We must be victorious in this cause, and victory begins with allowing this body to get to work. It begins today. Now, winning isn't easy, okay? Winning isn't easy, but winning is necessary. And of all folks in this chamber, I know that winning isn't easy. I represent a district where only 29% of my voters are registered in the same party as I. But I engage and I communicate with the other 71% because it's the only way that we all win. And in the end, it's the only way that the nation wins. It ain't easy, but it's necessary. But the noble wins, the most important wins, never are easy. But we take on these missions just as passionately as Colonel Chamberlain did at Little Round Top in Gettysburg. We must hold this line because if we don't hold this line, the entire Union is at stake. We don't hold the majority for bragging rights. We hold the majority to govern responsibly. We hold the majority to protect the American people, to coalesce around the foundational constitutional principles that I've been willing to give my life to defend since the age of 18. To my Democrat colleagues across the aisle, I want to make sure you understand and make no mistake. We are, in fact, on the verge of a very important victory. A victory for the people, a victory by the people, and most importantly, a victory for the future of our nation. And it dawns on me as I look across the aisle after being here for nearly 3 years that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting many of you because you've chosen to stay at home and not vote here in person and electing instead to proxy vote.
The member-elect is reminded to direct his
exactly.
remarks to the chair.
Well,
And so what the chair was
it's a
directing him
pleasure
to
see
is
212 of you here
the
today.
insults
It's
that
also a
they
pleasure to see the
constantly
end of the
throw at
proxy
the other
voting.
side
Let me
versus talking about
end
what
with
they're
this.
doing. But we've seen this gaslighting
Let me
over and
end with
over
this.
again. These
I'm
same
extremely proud of my colleagues
speeches
on this side of the aisle.
to nominate McCarthy
the last 4
without any
days, they haven't been
acknowledgement of the
ideal. They've been
disorder and
difficult.
chaos
But I
that
do
they've
see
caused
fighters.
as
I
they
see
are
patriots who
humiliated
love this
over
country
and
and
over again.
want
Throw
to
those
make
clown
things better.
emojis up.
I
Throw
see
those clown
folks who are
emojis up. And
willing to do
Salty,
whatever
let's
is
pull up that
necessary
photo
to
again
ensure that
of
we
Garcia
better
the
serve the
insurrectionist.
nation. I see men and women who are willing to serve her with that pure and selfless intent, even if that service means undergoing the dentistry that we've experienced over the last 4 days and in the wake of the last 20 meetings over the last 2 months. Let me be clear, these are not concessions to the rules. These are critical evolution of the rules for the good of the nation. And I'm proud that we as a party have decided and been willing to extend the time aperture so that we can get to a solution, a product of compromise, but also a product that will fix the ills induced by the Democrat majority over the last 4 years. And this product will hopefully end the multifaceted legacy of reckless and toxic behavior in the swamp. And so this isn't about Kevin McCarthy. It's not about the 434 members in this chamber. It's about the 330 million Americans across this beautiful land, and it's about our nation's future. The person who will lead us on that journey will be Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah,
He has
no,
earned this
you
position,
don't
and I have
speak
the
for
honor
us,
of
Mike
nominating him at the
Garcia.
direction of the
You
Republican Conference
insurrectionist
as the
traitors
Speaker of the
don't
House of the
speak for us.
118th Congress. God bless the United States.
This is just beyond humiliating. again and again and again. Here we go on the 12th roll call vote because these coward, traitor, incompetent chaos agents want to look at
For what purpose
McCarthy.
does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate my friend, colleague, and leader of the House Democratic Caucus, Hakeem Jeffries, for Speaker of the United
The
States House
gentleman
of
is
Representatives.
recognized.
Madam Clerk, I want to begin by thanking you for your contribution to maintaining the dignity and honor of this august body. The eyes of the country
He's been incredible, Clerk Cheryl Johnson.
The eyes of the country are on us today. Let us consider what they will remember. I often refer to this hall as America's classroom. The proceedings we undertake in this body and our actions should serve as lessons for those who may be watching and are listening. Hopefully, that which they see and hear will help them gain understanding and appreciation for the greatness of America and the goodness of the American people. This body has a unique role in this government. What we do and how we do it will determine whether our pursuit toward a more perfect union can continue in earnest. No day in recent history underscores the importance of that pursuit more than January 6, 2021. Exactly 2 years ago today, our resolve was tested when the violent mob of insurrectionists attacked our Capitol, threatened the integrity of this democracy, and undermined our Constitution. The greatness of this country and the resiliency of our democracy were put at peril. But we survived. The preamble of the Constitution explains that the document was established in part to secure the blessings of liberty, not just for ourselves, but also to posterity. In this body, we are tasked with protecting our nation's hard-earned principles of liberty, justice, and freedom for all. Every 2 years, the American people evaluate our stewardship and render a verdict. Last November, they invested their time and resources going to the polls and casting their votes. They expect and should get a just return on their investments. For many, maybe most Americans, this is the only investment they will ever make to help preserve the greatness of this country. For the first time in over 200 years, after 11 rounds of voting, we are unable to organize and begin to work on behalf of those who elected us to serve. Democrats are offering a candidate for Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, who's not just prepared to lead, but committed to preserving this democracy and enhancing this august body. Madam Clerk, there is some dispute among historians as to whether Alexis de Tocqueville said this, but I consider it to be true regardless. De Tocqueville is credited in some quarters with having said, "America is great because she is good. If America ceases to be good, America will cease to be great." The greatness of America lies in the goodness that exists within the American people. Today, the greatness of our nation hangs in the balance because the goodness of the American people is at stake. We Democrats are offering the people of America, through this unique body, a good man who has the best interest of the American people at heart and is committed to preserving the fundamental principles that make this country great. Madam Clerk, I'm honored to carry out the directives of the House Democratic Caucus and submit to this august body the name of Hakeem Jeffries to be Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
You're watching a legend, Jim Clyburn, representative of South Carolina, nominate Hakeem Jeffries. Let's see if the defectors are going to nominate someone, which will probably tell us if Kevin McCarthy will lose this round. Let's pay attention.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida rise?
To submit a name for nomination for the position of Speaker of the House.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My colleague from California, Mr. Garcia, knows the incredibly high regard I hold him in. He is a patriot. I deeply, deeply admire him, but I must take some exception with some of the comments he made in his nomination of Mr. McCarthy. First, he said that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position. You only earn the position of Speaker of the House if you can get the votes. Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year. And so one must wonder, Madam Clerk, is this an exercise in vanity for someone who has done the math, taken the counts, and is putting this institution through something that absolutely is avoidable? My colleague, Mr. Garcia, did not say this, but many of my other Republican colleagues have. They believe that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position of Speaker of the House because he raised $500 million to get Republicans elected.
The gentleman is not recognized. Members
Utter
are
chaos on the
reminded
House
not
floor
to
right now.
engage in
Republicans
personalities
screaming
against other
at
members of the House.
Republicans.
Several believe that one earns the position of Speaker by raising enormous sums of money, and there is no doubt that the individual that was nominated by Mr. Garcia is the LeBron James of special interest fundraising in this town. There is nobody better, but I would suggest that there are qualifications for Speaker that are far more important. There are attributes that are far more important. Jim Jordan has those, and I am submitting his name for nomination at this time. I heard my colleague from California, Mr. Garcia, say that we seek pure, selfless intent, and I could not agree more with that assessment. Mr. Jordan, indeed, is reflective of pure, selfless intent. I don't know that the same can be said for the Republican alternative. Let's start with purity. Many of you have seen the reports that there are negotiations to determine whether or not on this side of the aisle there can be a deal. a meeting of the minds, a grand bargain that would allow us to proceed with the speakership. And I want all of my colleagues to know, regardless of your perspective on me, how impure some of those negotiations have gone. And I want the country to know the principal goal of the people who are objecting to Mr. McCarthy on the Republican side is that we don't believe the rules of this place unlock the potential of all of the members to be able to cast votes on individual bills and to offer amendments on appropriations acts. And we're also concerned about spending that has ballooned our debt and borrowed against the future generations of American citizens. And Mr. McCarthy said, well, goodness, to the objectors, a lot of you want to be on the Oversight and Judiciary Committee, and you never submit your names to be on the Rules Committee or the Appropriations Committee. And so, gosh, if you'll get a list of folks who are willing to come early on fly-in days for rules, and folks who are willing to take on the extra burden of our appropriators who work so hard, then I'll certainly work to do that. And so we endeavored in good faith, in pure good faith, to create that list. And then what did Mr. McCarthy do? He went out to the media and came to other members of the conference and said, see, they just want jobs for themselves. That is not pure. Selflessness. Selflessness is not selling shares of yourself to the lobby corps and then doing their bidding at the expense of the American people. But there certainly is intent, and it's an intent driven almost exclusively by personal ambition, and that ambition is paralyzing the House now. Madam Clerk, at this time, there is great trust in Mr. Jordan, and that's why I am nominating him, and there is insufficient trust in Kevin McCarthy. There are some who have been objecting to Mr. McCarthy who are working on perhaps changes to the rules, changes to circumstance that would convert the speakership from the great, awesome, powerful position it is now to more of a ceremonial position, almost akin to the Speaker in the British House of Commons. I referred to it previously as a straitjacket that some of us were trying to construct with better rules and better personnel because we do not trust Mr. McCarthy with power, because we know who he will use it for, and we are concerned it will not be for the American people. We trust Jim Jordan. I nominate him.
Looks like we
and I'm
actually
going to
see
vote
some
for him.
Republicans walking out right now.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Colorado rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to enter a name for nomination for Speaker.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Once again, I just stand here today to nominate Kevin Hearn, the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, the largest caucus in the Republican Conference, who unanimously was elected as chairman, whom I believe can unite this Republican conference and put forward the agenda that we all promise to work hard on and serve our American people to the best of our abilities with. I believe that Kevin Hearn will be a fighter for our national debt. I get texts on a regular basis at how inflation is hurting families, how grocery prices are skyrocketing continuously. He has crafted a budget that balances and will bring that to the floor to help the American people. Madam Clerk, I nominate Kevin Hearn as Speaker. Thank you.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
So we saw utter chaos there as we go into the 12th roll call vote. It will appear Kevin McCarthy is going to lose again in the 12th roll call vote on day 4. And you saw the Democrats actually applauding Matt Gaetz there when Matt Gaetz said, Kevin McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He doesn't have the votes tomorrow. And he is not going to have the votes a month from now. He is not going to have the votes. Stop putting the institution through this. And you have to reflect on that for a second. I mean, that is actually 100% right. Like, what are you doing, Kevin McCarthy? Let me play this clip. I think it was the most important part of what we've probably seen so far in terms of any indication about what's going to happen next. Is Kevin McCarthy going to have the votes today? Well, you're hearing it from Gates saying, you're not going to have the votes today, tomorrow, a month from now. Stop it. Let's play this clip from moments ago.
Speaker, my colleague from California, Mr. Garcia, knows the incredibly high regard I hold him in. He is a patriot. I deeply, deeply admire him, but I must take some exception with some of the comments he made in his nomination of Mr. McCarthy. First, he said that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position. You only earn the position of Speaker of the House if you can get the votes. Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year. And so one must wonder, Madam Clerk, is this an exercise in vanity for someone who has done the math, taken the counts, and is putting this institution through something that absolutely is avoidable? My colleague, Mr. Garcia.
And in response to that, you had Representative Mike Bost, Republican from Illinois, got up and screamed at Matt Gaetz as Matt Gaetz was tearing into Kevin McCarthy. Here, let's play this clip.
I believe that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position of Speaker of the House because he raised $500 million to get Republicans elected.
The gentleman is not recognized.
Members are reminded not to engage.
And you heard some announcements in there that members are advised not to engage in personal attacks and personal insults. That was also one of the first times I think we've ever heard the Republican Party use LeBron James's name in a positive way. And we should also reflect that Matt Gaetz, who is under investigation for trafficking of a minor, just nominated Jim Jordan, who is accused of covering up sex abuse, for Speaker of the House. This is who the Republican Party is. January 6th, 2023, 2 years from the date of the insurrection, and the insurrectionists in Congress, the Republican insurrectionists, are doing what insurrectionists do, which is destroy government and engage in insurrection. I want to reflect on some positive news in normal world. In President Biden's agenda, the U.S. economy added 223,000 jobs in December, beating expectations. The unemployment rate dropped to 3.5% from a revised 3.6% in November. It is the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. The U.S. gained 4.5 million jobs in 2022, making it one of the best years of job growth ever, only behind 2021. We have inflation cooling. Inflation in the second half of the year has run vastly lower than in the first half. In fact, and this is astonishing, it's almost back down to the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Even more astonishing, hardly anyone has noticed that from a report from the Wall Street Journal, of all places. And here we are in the House of Representatives, day 4, roll call vote 11, January 6th of all days, an anniversary of a date that will live in infamy. And it appears Kevin McCarthy is going to lose this roll call vote again. Let's go back to the House floor. I'll try to gather some additional information if there will be more defections, and be right back to you.
Jeffries. Cardenas. Jeffries. Carey. McCarthy. Carl. McCarthy. Carson. Jeffries. Carter of Georgia. McCarthy. Carter of Louisiana. Jeffries. Carter of Texas. McCarthy. Cartwright. Jeffries. Kassar. Kassar. Case. Jeffries. Caston. Jeffries. Castor of
So for
Florida.
those following right now,
Jeffries.
we did have a switch to
Castro of
McCarthy there.
Texas.
Representative Dan
Jeffries.
Bishop switched his
Chavez
vote to
DeRemer.
McCarthy. Bishop of North Carolina's 8th
McCarthy.
congressional district, who was one of the
Sheriff-Phyllis
defectors,
McCormick.
switched over to McCarthy
Jeffries.
finally. So one defection
2.
there, 2 votes, as you see, from the
Jeffries.
defector still. Let's see if there will be more
Cicilline.
defections to
Jeffries.
McCarthy the way Bishop was. But
Siscomani.
that is a big development that Dan Bishop has
McCarthy.
switched.
Clark of Massachusetts. Jeffries. Clark of New York. Jeffries. Cleaver. Jeffries. Klein. McCarthy. Cloud.
Okay, and now there's 2. We're seeing more switches right now to McCarthy, so we'll see what happens. There was Representative Josh Breachin, Republican, switched his vote to McCarthy.
Clyburn. Jeffries. Clyde.
We're seeing more defections right now from the defecting group back to McCarthy. We'll see if McCarthy has enough votes on this round.
Cohen. Jeffries. Cole. McCarthy. Collins. McCarthy. Comer. McCarthy. Connolly. Jeffries. Correa. Jeffries. Costa. Jeffries. Courtney. Jeffries. Craig. Jeffries. Crane. Hearn.
Another vote there for
Crawford.
Hearn. 2 more
McCarthy.
votes for Hearn or Jordan.
Crenshaw.
And it looks like McCarthy will lose. Let's see.
McCarthy. Crockett. Jeffries. Crow. Jeffries. Cuellar. Jeffries. Curtis. McCarthy. Davids of Kansas. Jeffries. Davidson. McCarthy.
Let's pull up that list, Salty, of the
Davis of
defectors as the
Illinois.
roll call vote happens.
Jeffries. Davis of North Carolina. Jeffries. Dean of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. DeGette.
The next one we're going to have to
Jeffries.
look for is Donalds as
De
they
La
go D.
Cruz.
Let's see if Donalds is a
McCarthy.
defector, so let's see D. Then we're going to look for Gates,
DeLauro.
G, and Good.
Jeffries.
Look for what Donalds is
Delvene.
going to do.
Jeffries. DeLuzio. Jeffries. DeSagne.
We're getting
Jeffries.
close, folks. Big thing about it.
Desjardins. McCarthy. D'Esposito. McCarthy. Diaz-Balart. Diaz-Balart. Dingle. Jeffries. Doggett. Jeffries. Donalds. McCarthy.
So that was a big switch there. We're now at 5. Bishop, Breachin, Cloud, Clyde, Donalds have went from defectors to McCarthy, and you see the crowd erupting there. The
Duarte,
next one will be Gates, and Gates will be
McCarthy.
voting for Jordan, so we'll have 4.
Duncan, McCarthy. Dunn of Florida, McCarthy. Edwards, McCarthy. Elzey, McCarthy. Emmer, McCarthy. Escobar, Jeffries. Eshue, Jeffries. Espaillat.
So the next 2 important ones that we should be
Estes.
focused on, Salty, pull back up
McCarthy.
the list so everybody following along.
Evans,
What we're looking at
Jeffries.
is the G's now.
Ezel,
Gates, Good, Gosar.
Fallon.
Those 3 are going to be a tough one for McCarthy to
McCarthy.
get. Gates, Good, and Gosar.
Feenstra, McCarthy.
If somehow McCarthy can make it
Ferguson.
through those,
McCarthy.
he's got a shot.
Finstad,
Although you got Scott Perry
McCarthy.
to deal with.
Fishbach,
So not an easy path for
McCarthy.
McCarthy as we pull up that list.
Fitzgerald,
But
McCarthy.
those are the next most important ones that we're paying attention to,
Fitzpatrick.
the G's.
McCarthy. Fleischman, McCarthy. Fletcher, Jeffries. Flood, McCarthy. Foster,
We're
Jeffries.
getting close to the G's.
Bushi,
The Gates, the
Jeffries.
Gosar, the
Fox.
Good trifecta. We've had
McCarthy.
5 of the defectors in this round
Lois Frankel,
go to McCarthy.
Jeffries.
So
C.
the
Scott
group of
Franklin.
defectors will be less
McCarthy.
in this round.
Frost, Jeffries. Fry, McCarthy. Fulcher, McCarthy. Gates, Jordan. Gallagher, McCarthy. Gallego, Jeffries. Garamendi, Jeffries. Garbarino, McCarthy. Mike Garcia, McCarthy. Robert Garcia, Jeffries. Garcia of Illinois, Jeffries.
And for those remembering, Gates voted for Jordan.
Garcia of Texas, Jeffries.
We're now looking for Good and Gosar's votes here.
Jimenez, McCarthy. Golden of Maine,
Getting close.
Jeffries. Goldman of New York,
Getting very close.
Goldman of New York. Gomez, Jeffries. Tony Gonzalez, McCarthy. Vicente Gonzalez, Jeffries. Good of Virginia, Jordan.
There you have it. That's 5. And that means that
Gooden of
McCarthy
Texas.
likely is going to lose this round.
McCarthy. Gosar. Gosar. Gottheimer. Jeffries.
So it looked like
Ranger.
Gosar was not there.
McCarthy.
Gosar did not respond.
Grays of Louisiana.
So the next group we look at
McCarthy.
is Harris, Luna, Miller, Norman,
Graves of
Ogles,
Missouri.
Perry. I don't think he gets the
McCarthy.
Perry vote for sure.
Green of Tennessee. McCarthy. Green of Texas.
And still our lives and proudly cast my vote on behalf of those who understand that Black Lives Matter for Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Green of Georgia. McCarthy. Griffith, McCarthy. Grijalva. Jeffries. Grothman. McCarthy. Guest. McCarthy. Guthrie. McCarthy. Hageman. McCarthy. Harder of California. Jeffries. Harris. Jordan.
Based on those six, it's
Harshbarger.
almost a foregone conclusion.
McCarthy.
McCarthy's going to lose this 12th roll call vote,
Hayes.
although he picked up some of the
Jeffries.
defectors so far, about 6
Hearn.
defectors that he's picked up.
McCarthy.
So I suppose some progress, but
Higgins of Louisiana.
the defectors have said there's no uncertain terms they're not going to be
McCarthy.
supporting McCarthy. And so
Higgins of
while
New
that
York.
number goes from 21
Jeffries. Hill.
to a smaller number, we may see that number
McCarthy.
closer to 8 or 10
Hines.
defectors after this round.
Jeffries. Henson.
McCarthy still does not have
McCarthy.
the votes.
Horsford.
Salty, let's put back up that image so everybody can follow
Jeffries.
who we're looking for. As we
Houchin.
go alphabetical,
McCarthy. Houlihan.
we're now looking at the
Jeffries.
H's, the L's.
Hoyer. Jeffries. Hoyle of Oregon.
See what
Jeffries.
the next group we want to see is
Hudson.
what Luna will do, what
McCarthy.
Miller will do,
Huffman.
Perry,
Jeffries. Huizinga. McCarthy. Hunt. Hunt. Isa. McCarthy. Ivy. Jeffries. Jackson of Illinois.
So for those counting at home too, we have a
Jeffries.
group of the defectors, as now
Jackson of North
some of them
Carolina.
have shifted to McCarthy.
Jeffries.
McCarthy is still projected
Jackson of
to
Texas.
lose this round. He will lose the 12th roll call round, although he has moved some of the defectors to his side. Specifically, he's moved Byron Donalds, Republican from Florida's 19th district, Michael Cloud, Republican from Texas 27th, Andrew Clyde from Georgia's 9th, Dan Bishop from North Carolina's 8th. And we will see as we continue to look down the list. Let's pull up the defector list one more time, Salty. Let's see what happens at the L, at Luna.
Jeffries.
So everybody pay attention to the L for Luna and where she will
Johnson
vote.
of Georgia. Jeffries. Johnson of Louisiana. McCarthy. Johnson of Ohio. McCarthy. Johnson of South Dakota. McCarthy. Jordan. McCarthy. Joyce of Ohio. McCarthy. Joyce of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Kim Lager Dove. Jeffries. Captor. Jeffries. Kane of New Jersey. McCarthy. Keating. Jeffries. Kelly of Illinois. Jeffries. Kelly of Mississippi. McCarthy. Kelly of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Khanna. Jeffries. Kiggins of Virginia.
Okay, so what we're very
McCarthy.
focused on right now is
Kilby.
how many of the defector group
Jeffries.
previously of 21 is
Kiley.
going to go McCarthy's way. We
McCarthy.
can project right now Kevin
Kilmer.
McCarthy will lose
Jeffries.
the 12th roll call vote.
Kim of California.
We have a list right there. Let's put it back up, Salty, of the
McCarthy.
defectors. Some of the defectors went to McCarthy.
of New
The next
Jersey.
defector who we're all focused on,
Jeffries.
as they go alphabetically and
Krishnamurti.
everyone should be paying attention to, is L,
Jeffries.
Luna. Let's see what Anna
Custer.
Paulina Luna, Republican from Florida's
Jeffries.
13th district, if she's going to go with
Kustoff.
McCarthy or if she's
McCarthy.
staying with the defectors. Let's watch.
LaHood. McCarthy. La Lota. McCarthy. La Malfa. McCarthy. Lamborn. McCarthy. Landsman. Jeffries. Langworthy. McCarthy. Larson of Washington. Jeffries. Larson of Connecticut. Jeffries. Latta. McCarthy. LaTurner. McCarthy. Lawler.
The Honorable Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Lee of California. Jeffries.
We're getting close to Luna.
Lee of Florida. McCarthy. Lee of Nevada. Jeffries. Lee of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. Ledger Fernandez. Ledger Fernandez.
Jeffries.
Lesko. McCarthy. Letlow. McCarthy. Levin. Jeffries.
Here we go. We're getting close to Luna.
Lou. Jeffries. Lofgren. Jeffries. Loudermilk. McCarthy. Lucas.
Next,
McCarthy.
this is big.
Luke Kamai.
That's Luna right there you're seeing on
McCarthy.
the screen.
Luna.
Ending negotiations in good faith that will outlive this entire conference. Kevin McCarthy.
So there you have it. Luna, a defector, Florida's, I believe, 13th congressional district. She's now voted for McCarthy. That's why you see the round of applause. She does not look happy making that vote, but
Luttrell.
another defector
McCarthy.
going McCarthy's way. So
Lynch.
McCarthy will pick up a
Jeffries.
considerable
Mace.
amount of votes this round. Will not have enough to win the 12th roll call vote.
Mace.
The
McCarthy.
next name that
Magaziner.
if you look at the list as we go through the
Jeffries.
M's, Miller, Norman, Ogles, Perry.
Maliotakis. McCarthy. Mann. McCarthy. Manning. Jeffries. Massey. McCarthy. Mast. McCarthy. Matsui. Jeffries. McBath. Jeffries. McCarthy. McCarthy.
Let's go pull up that list there, Salty. And so we're seeing a number, we're following alphabetically here.
McCall.
We're seeing a number
McCarthy.
of the
McLean.
defectors on this 12th roll call vote now
McCarthy.
voting for McCarthy, like Luna voted
McClintock.
for McCarthy.
McCarthy. McCullum. Jeffries. McCormick. McCarthy. McGarvey.
We're following next to see Miller,
McGarvey,
where Miller will vote.
Jeffries. McGovern, Jeffries. McHenry, McCarthy. Meeks, Jeffries. Menendez, Jeffries. Meng, Jeffries. Muser, McCarthy. Mfume, Jeffries. Miller of Illinois,
Here we go. She said, based on negotiations, McCarthy, that is another defector going over to the McCarthy side. The next one will be Norman. And let's see, as we pull up the list, Salty, of the
Miller of
defectors.
Ohio, McCarthy.
Norman, Ogles, Perry,
Miller of West
Rosendale,
Virginia,
Chip Roy, Self, and Sparks.
McCarthy.
Out of those,
Miller Meeks,
believe that Scott Perry will still be with the defectors.
McCarthy. Mills,
Possibly Chip Roy. I
McCarthy.
think the others are going to go
Molinaro,
to McCarthy.
McCarthy.
So I think they'll be less than,
Molinar,
from how it looks
McCarthy.
now, I think it'll be less than 10 defectors
Mooney, McCarthy.
as we go through this round. Still,
Moore of
Kevin
Alabama.
McCarthy will lose
McCarthy.
the 12th roll call
Moore of
vote.
Utah,
We can predict that right now.
McCarthy.
But a number of the defectors have
Moore
now
of
moved towards
Wisconsin.
Kevin McCarthy. And when they're
Jeffries.
standing up and they're doing that, they're saying,
Moran,
based upon the good faith
McCarthy.
negotiations that happened last night,
Morelli,
earlier today, I'm voting Kevin
Jeffries.
McCarthy. And then you see the
Moskowitz.
round of applause. That's what's
Jeffries.
going on there. And so for those, again,
Bolton.
following at home,
Jeffries.
the next name we're looking for is
Mervan.
Norman. Will Norman
Jeffries.
shift to McCarthy?
Mullen,
How will this impact
Jeffries.
the 13th
Murphy,
roll call vote? How will those 6
Murphy,
defectors change their behavior based on what's
McCarthy.
taking place right now?
Nadler,
We're
Jeffries.
getting close to Norman.
Napolitano, Jeffries. Neal, Jeffries. Nagoose, Jeffries. Nails, McCarthy. Newhouse, McCarthy.
Based on the
Nickel.
way this vote's shaping up, it
Jeffries.
doesn't look like Hakeem Jeffries will be the lead
Norcross.
vote getter in this round. It looks like
Jeffries.
McCarthy will be the lead
Norman.
vote getter. Will not have enough votes to hit the 218. Here we go. There we go. That was Norman, everyone. Norman went over to McCarthy, another defector who has now voted for Kevin McCarthy. So based on the list of defectors, let's pull it back up, Salty, of who we look for next. I believe Ogles will also go for McCarthy. Scott Perry's a maniac.
None of
I
Iowa,
think Scott Perry's going to stick with the
McCarthy.
more insurrectionists. Rosendale, I think, goes with McCarthy.
Obernolte,
Chip Roy, I think, is
McCarthy.
a toss-up. I'd be surprised.
Ocasio-Cortez,
Chip Roy spoken a
Jeffries.
tough game about
Ogles.
McCarthy. He'd be the last person on that list who I think would.
Ogles,
Here we go.
Omar, Jeffries. Owens, McCarthy. Pallone, Jeffries. Palmer, McCarthy. Panetta, Jeffries. Pappas, Jeffries. Pasquale, Jeffries. Payne,
The two things to point out now for those keeping track,
Payne.
both Ogles and Gosar missed their names.
Pelosi, Jeffries.
So they have not responded. So two
Peltola.
of the defectors
Jeffries.
have not yet voted. So keep that in
Pence.
mind. Ogles and
McCarthy.
Gosar.
Perez, Jeffries. Perry, McCarthy.
And that Perry for McCarthy, I think, is a very big switch right there. for Scott Perry to vote for McCarthy. It seems like based on the remaining list, I think everyone else is going to vote for McCarthy. What's Ogles and
Peters.
Gosar going to do?
Jeffries. Pedersen. Jeffries. Fluger. McCarthy. Phillips. Jeffries.
The next one
Pingree.
we're going to focus on is Rosendale.
Jeffries.
I think
O'Can.
Rosendale will go for McCarthy.
Jeffries. Porter. Jeffries. Posey. McCarthy. Presley. Presley. Quigley. Jeffries. Ramirez. Jeffries. Raskin. Jeffries. Reschenthaler. McCarthy. Rogers of Washington. McCarthy. Rogers of Alabama. McCarthy. McCarthy. Rogers of Kentucky. Rogers of Kentucky. McCarthy. Rose. McCarthy. Rosendale.
Here we go.
Hearn.
Pull up the list right there. What a clownish move right there. I mean, that just shows you the level of trolling that takes place. Pull up the list one more time of the defectors. That was Matt Rosendale right
Jeffries.
there, one of the defectors who went up there and said,
Rouser.
Kevin
McCarthy.
Earn. People thought that he was
Roy.
actually going to vote Kevin McCarthy. So that was a big one right there. Chip Roy going to Kevin McCarthy. A big defector moving into Kevin McCarthy's camp right there. But that Kevin Hearn moment right there
Ruiz.
shows you what trolls these people are.
Ruppersberger. Jeffries. Rutherford. McCarthy.
Remember, Ogles
Ryan.
and Gosar did not
Jeffries.
respond when their names were called. To me,
Salazar.
Gosar can still be a defection.
Salazar. Salinas. Jeffries.
To be clear for those watching,
Sanchez.
Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes to win this 12th roll
Sanchez.
call vote. He will lose the 12th roll call vote. He needs 218. The
Santos.
numbers just aren't there right now.
Sarbanes.
Pull up the list of the
Jeffries.
defectors right now. The next one's going to be
Scalise.
Keith Self.
McCarthy.
Will Keith Self,
Scanlon.
a previous defector, go Kevin McCarthy? Chip
Jeffries.
Roy did. Scott
Chakowski.
Perry did. Ralph Norman
Jeffries.
did. Mary Miller
Schiff.
did. Luna did.
Jeffries.
Gosar hasn't voted
Schneider.
yet.
Jeffries. Skolton.
Let's see what Self does.
Jeffries. Schreier. Jeffries. Schweikert. McCarthy. Austin Scott. McCarthy. David Scott. Jeffries. Scott of Virginia. Jeffries. Self.
We are making progress. McCarthy.
McCarthy.
We are making progress. McCarthy, another defector, just moved into McCarthy's camp. Only 7 defectors this round. He said, we are making progress. They are celebrating their own humiliation.
Sessions. McCarthy.
Let's pull back up the list of defectors.
Sewell.
The last one is Victoria
Jeffries.
Sparks. She's been voting
Sherman.
present after supporting Kevin McCarthy.
Jeffries.
Sparks will almost certainly
Sherrill.
vote McCarthy here. I would be very
Jeffries.
surprised if Sparks
Simpson.
votes present or others.
McCarthy.
I expect that to go into Kevin McCarthy
Slotkin.
camp. So the
Jeffries.
question will then be Ogles and
Smith
Gosar.
of Missouri. McCarthy. Smith of Nebraska. McCarthy. Smith of New Jersey. McCarthy. Smith of Washington. Jeffries. Smucker. McCarthy. Sorensen. Jeffries. Soto. Jeffries.
Get ready for Sparks.
Spanberger.
Should be the next one.
Jeffries. Sparks.
Here we go.
McCarthy.
As predicted, Sparks goes over to Kevin McCarthy. 13 flips on this vote for McCarthy. Breachin, Bishop, Cloud, Clyde, Donalds, Luna, Miller, Norman,
Stansbury.
Perry, Roy, Self,
Jeffries.
Sparks. If we pull up our list of the defectors, 13 of those defectors
Stanton.
have now moved in the
Jeffries.
direction of Kevin McCarthy.
Sauber.
There still remains, you can see
McCarthy.
from the current vote count,
Steele.
that McCarthy does not have the vote.
McCarthy.
Still 7 defectors.
Stefanik.
We're waiting to see what
McCarthy.
Ogles and Gosar will do. They did not
Style.
respond to their
McCarthy.
name taking place.
Stubbe.
Point that
McCarthy.
my younger brother, one of the co-founders of MeidasTouch,
Stevens.
made yesterday
Jeffries.
on the MeidasTouch podcast. By the way, make sure
Stewart.
you're subscribed to this YouTube
McCarthy.
channel right now. Hit the subscribe button right
Strickland.
now so you can get this independent live
Jeffries.
coverage of the events. And make sure
Strong.
you search for the MeidasTouch podcast
McCarthy.
wherever you get your audio. Subscribe to
Swallow.
the MeidasTouch podcast and the
Jeffries.
legal podcast I do called
Sykes.
Legal AF. Search for that
Jeffries.
as well. But you see how important
Takano.
Santos, George Santos, the traitor
Jeffries.
fraud is,
Tenney.
because every single vote matters. And wouldn't it be
McCarthy.
something if it's ultimately George
Canada.
Santos, that one
Jeffries.
vote that could actually break the
Thompson-
deadlock for
Thompson
Kevin
of
McCarthy
California.
on January
Jeffries.
6th in the 13th or 14th
Thompson
round?
of Mississippi.
It shows you how important Santos'
Jeffries.
his vote is right now.
Thompson of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Tiffany.
And here, as
McCarthy.
they go through the remaining roll call,
Timmons.
there's not going to be any
McCarthy.
surprising votes here that should shift this in
Titus.
any way. What we're going to be focused
Jeffries.
on is Ogles and
Tlaib.
Gosar, seeing what
Jeffries.
Ogle and Gosar's
Takuda.
Ogles and Gosar do.
Jeffries.
They're not
Congo.
in the alphabetical list, so they're going to
Jeffries.
be asked
Gomez of
afterwards.
California.
Gosar, I was shocked that
Jeffries.
Scott Perry moved over to McCarthy. I was shocked that Luna moved
Torres of
over
New
to
York.
McCarthy, but there
Jeffries.
does seem to be progress. And the question
Trahan.
is
Jeffries.
will what just transpired in the
Trone.
12 roll call round, will that impact the
Trone.
13th? Will Matt Gaetz, who gave the speech saying that never,
Turner.
ever, ever will
McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy become the Speaker of the House, will something
Underwood.
change now that they're just
Jeffries.
dealing with 7?
Valadeo. McCarthy. Van Drew. McCarthy. Van Dyne. McCarthy. Van Orden. McCarthy. Vargas. Jeffries. Vasquez. Jeffries. VC. Jeffries.
The question is, though, how are
Velasquez.
you going to convince
Jeffries.
Gates,
Wagner.
Boebert,
McCarthy.
and Rosendale?
Wahlberg. McCarthy. Waltz. McCarthy. Wasserman Schultz. Jeffries. Waters. Jeffries.
While you're watching, you can check us
Watson
out too
Coleman.
at patreon.com/MeidasTouch,
Jeffries.
patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We take no outside
McCarthy.
investors here. We're 100% accountable
Webster
to
of
our
Florida.
independent community. Check us out,
McCarthy.
patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Become a
Winstrip.
member there. Lots of great exclusive
McCarthy.
content We don't both sides media issues. We call
Westerman.
traitors traitors, and we're 100%
McCarthy.
accountable to you, funded by you. It's the way the
Wexton.
media should be.
Jeffries.
Patreon.com/MeidasTouch.
Wild.
Also, check out our merch at store.MeidasTouch.com for the best pro
Williams
democracy
of
gear.
Georgia.
Store.MeidasTouch.com. Get the Convict or
Williams of New
Convict
York.
45 shirts and
McCarthy.
so much more.
Williams of Texas.
Make sure you subscribe to it. It's free to subscribe.
McCarthy. Wilson of Florida. Jeffries. Wilson of South Carolina. McCarthy.
Just moments ago, we saw Republican Rosendale, member of Congress
McCarthy.
Rosendale, who's one of the defectors,
Womack.
do
McCarthy.
this. Let's play this instant replay if we can.
Rosendale.
Kevin.
Hearn.
There you have the insurrectionists trolling other insurrectionists. So as they finish the roll call, one thing that we can say is McCarthy's going to get the most votes in this round. Now they're going to try to find
Alford.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Buck. Buck. Burchett.
Madam Clerk, based on the fact no one cheers when I speak, and I've never been asked to give a nomination speech, but I'm not bitter about it. Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Kassar. Jeffries. Diaz-Balart. McCarthy.
So you see Gates right there
Goldman of New
talking
York.
to Gosar,
Jeffries.
seeing where Gosar is going to vote.
Gosar.
Looks by the body language. Let's see what happens. Looks like Gates is concerned.
McCarthy.
So a switch right there. You saw the concern on Gates's face.
Hunt. Hunt. Ledger Fernandez. Jeffries. Ogles.
On behalf of my colleagues and negotiating.
Looks like he's going to vote for McCarthy as well.
Active good faith.
You'll now see the applause.
McCarthy. Payne. Jeffries.
So it looks like in this round, if the
Presley.
votes continue to play out the way it will,
Jeffries.
McCarthy will have one more vote in this round than Jeffries, 213, 212.
Salazar. McCarthy. Sanchez.
Let's pull up the list of the
Jeffries.
defectors if we can.
Trone.
That list will be significantly truncated after this round.
Trone.
If there are any members-elect who did not answer the call of the roll, they may come to the well and vote at this time.
So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the 13th roll call vote. Kevin McCarthy will not win the 12th roll call vote. Looks like the amount of defectors went down from 21 defectors to 7 defectors at the current moment. The list has been truncated significantly. And when all of these individuals who were defectors who were going to the McCarthy side would say they were going back to the McCarthy side, they would say things like, based on good faith negotiations and the promises made to us, we are hereby voting for McCarthy. And we saw Breachin, Bishop, Cloud, Clyde, Donalds, Luna, Miller, Norman, Perry, Roy, Self, Sparts, Gosar, among others, defectors go to McCarthy this round. So McCarthy is getting closer to that threshold number he needs to hit, 218. Getting very close. And the question is going to be, will what just transpired in the 12th roll call vote somehow change the dynamic amongst that group of 7 defectors who have said under no uncertain terms they will not support McCarthy? So will we go into a 13th? Will we go into a 14th? Or will something break this round? We heard very strong words from Matt Gaetz when he spoke and he nominated Jim Jordan. See if we can pull that clip up if we got it. And this is Matt Gaetz when he nominated Jim Jordan, talking about the reasons that he would never, ever, ever vote for McCarthy. If we've got that one, let's press play on that one.
Speaker, my colleague from California, Mr. Garcia, knows the incredibly high regard I hold him in. He is a patriot. I deeply, deeply admire him. But I must take some exception with some of the comments he made in his nomination of Mr. McCarthy. First, he said that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position. You only earn the position of Speaker of the House if you can get the votes. Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year. And so one must wonder, Madam Clerk, is this an exercise in vanity for someone who has done the math, taken the counts, and is putting this institution through something that absolutely is avoidable? My colleague, Mr. Garcia.
There you have it, strong words, but I'll tell you this, Kevin McCarthy came much closer this round, and you saw that moment on Matt Gaetz' face, and I pointed it out live when he was talking to Paul Gosar, and Gosar was saying that, saying something to him, and it appeared that he was saying that he was going to vote for McCarthy, and Gaetz was looking very concerned there. The question is, will Gaetz be able to keep this coalition that went from 21, that was cut by 1/3 now? It's 1/3 as strong. It's now a group of 7 right now. So it went from the 21 you see here. Now we're going to make a new list of who the remaining defectors are. But that list has been whittled down, and every time, let's pull up the new list if we got it, of who the remaining defectors are. And so on this list, you can now see who's switched over from being a defector in the 12th round. You can see the various rounds there up top and who they are voting for. And you can see on the right-hand side, for example, someone like Andy Biggs, you see the J for Jordan. You see the Gaetz, the J for Jordan. You see the Boebert, the H for Hearn. You see under Bob Good, the J for Jordan. You see under Harris, the J for Jordan. And you see under Matt Rosendale, the H for Hearn. So that is the group that now remains in the 12th round. It's a great chart right here for all of those following at home. You can see the various rounds where the defectors were. So just for example, if you look at Byron Donalds and you look at the M's right there, he voted for McCarthy in round 1 and 2 before voting for Jim Jordan in round 3. And then as you look at it, he then voted for himself in rounds 4 through 11. And then in the 12th round, you see the M now voting for McCarthy. And for example, if you follow along with Dan Bishop, for example, you will see the same thing, voting here again against McCarthy all rounds, and then voting McCarthy finally in the 12th round. You see the M column. So you got Biggs, you got Gates, you got Good, you got Gosar, who went to McCarthy this round, which was a shock. You got Rosendale, and you got Harris. So you got a small group now of 7 right there. And I'm wondering if they can pick any of those 7. And going back to my other point, you now see how important that George Santos vote is going to be for Kevin McCarthy. Let's pull back up what's going on the House floor for those following along. You see it right there. Kevin McCarthy is going to lead this round. Hakeem Jeffries with 211 is going to come in second this round. This will be the first round Kevin McCarthy wins, but not enough votes for him to win the speakership. He will lose on the 12th roll call vote. And so the new group, and we could put up the volume there and just hear some of the noise on the House floor. You see the group of defectors, though, hanging close together there. Boebert, Gates, Biggs. Gates, though, looking a bit concerned right there. So the remaining 7, Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gates, Good, Harris, Rosendale, holding our government hostage. Kevin McCarthy's already had to sell shares of himself to the other extremist. So even if Kevin McCarthy, I mean, to the point that Matt Gaetz made in his statement, and Matt Gaetz actually said something correct, that even if McCarthy became the speaker, it would essentially be a ceremonial role. He'd have no power whatsoever. Some of the concessions that we've learned about is that at first, any 5 members of the Republican Party can oust him and have a no confidence vote. And I believe that number now has been reduced to just any single member that's been discussed. Can't 100% confirm it, but there's been reports on that any single member can hold a no confidence vote. One of the other concessions that McCarthy made was to immediately start a select committee that will attack and go after the Department of Justice and the FBI. That was a major priority of the MAGA extremists, as we're on this very solemn day, January 6, 2023, a 2-year anniversary when Donald Trump and insurrectionists tried to overthrow our democracy. One of the critical concessions that MAGA extremists wanted and that Kevin McCarthy relented to was a select committee that will attack the Department of Justice, will attack the work of the January 6th committee, will attack the FBI, because the Republicans are seeking to abolish those institutions, remove any laws relating to espionage in their quest and effort to protect Donald Trump and to protect domestic terrorists. And so that is what we are dealing with, folks. And even on the 13th roll call vote, if Kevin McCarthy can pull this off, he's going to have no power whatsoever. You're looking at Elise Stefanik, member of Congress, MAGA extremist, who, when she ran, pretended to be a moderate and then did anything she can to get power. There you see her right there fighting for Kevin McCarthy. And what they're trying to figure out right now, what you're watching on the House floor, is how can they move those 7? They need 218. He's at 214. You're seeing the chart right now. If you're following along on the chart and you look at the 12th column representing the 12th roll call vote, you see the J's representing Jim Jordan. You see the H's for Hearn. The M's that are in the lighter shade of gray are those who went back to McCarthy. And so as you look at this new list in the 12th column, we see everybody who switched back over to McCarthy. And you see right here, you've got, for example, Bishop and Breachin and Cloud and Clyde. And you see Donalds and Gosar and Luna and Miller and Norman and Ogles and Perry and Roy and Self and Sparks, all going back to Kevin McCarthy here, or going with Kevin McCarthy for the first time for some people who defected each and every round. And then you see the remaining holdouts, the remaining 7, Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gates, Good, Harris, and Rosendale. Will those 7 break? How can you break those 7? That's what Kevin McCarthy is going to have to figure out on this historic day. Also a very solemn day right there. You're looking at Congressmember Rosendale right there. Here's the clip from just moments ago where Congressmember Rosendale trolled Kevin McCarthy and said, "I'm going to vote for Kevin Hearn." Let's play this clip.
Rosendale.
Kevin.
Hearn.
Ross.
Jeffries.
Now, how are you supposed to get a troll like that in your corner? How do you get that guy to go around after doing that and vote for Kevin McCarthy? And how disgraceful and utterly embarrassing that that's just a member of Congress right there that is sitting in the people's house. I mean, utterly disgusting and just so weird. But that's what we've come to expect of the MAGA Republicans at this point. One of the things that Representative Luna, MAGA extremist, who will be in her first term of Congress, said when she defected to McCarthy here, she said, "Pending negotiations in good faith that will outlive this entire conference, I vote McCarthy." That's what she said. I don't know what that even means or what that refers to, or if she believes that those 7 holdouts are so strong that they won't break. And what more can Kevin McCarthy give those 7? Should also be noted for those watching the feed that you keep seeing George Santos hanging out with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It looks like George Santos found his friend. There you have Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert, actually looking increasingly isolated there and looking increasingly concerned a little bit. You don't see the Matt Gaetz that we saw yesterday kind of running around and kind of dictating and telling people what to do. So ultimately, we'll see, though, if those 7 remaining defectors will remain strong. Let's go to the House for a moment. Let me gather some of the other reporting out there for all of us and see if there are any other updates or breaking news across the wire that I can report. But let's see if a Speaker of the House will be selected today or if we are going to go through more rounds. So let's put up the volume on the House and let you watch the House floor for a moment. While you're watching the floor, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out what Simon Rosenberg just tweeted about, the great Simon Rosenberg, who is a big fan and friend of the MeidasTouch network, and we're a big fan of his. He was the one who predicted there was not going to be a red wave and that the country was supporting normalcy in the midterm elections. We had him on the podcast while the large media networks were engaged in spreading disinformation. But this is what he said. The Biden expansion keeps on expanding. 223,000 new jobs in December. Another really strong showing. This is a monthly thread about Dems and jobs. He talks about how there's more jobs now, 5 times the last 3 Republican presidents under the Biden administration. The unemployment rate is at 3.5%, which is the lowest in peacetime in the United States since World War II. In the last few months, poverty, uninsured rates have hit all-time lows. There are almost 2 job openings for every unemployed person. Worker shortages are common across the U.S. In terms of new business formation, a sign of the health and vitality of the U.S. economy remains at historically elevated levels. Wage growth also remains at historically elevated levels. And also inflation is cooling down as well. And the trade deficit continues to decline. The annual budget deficit has plummeted under Biden, as it did under Clinton and Obama, now significantly below Trump levels. Biden is averaging almost 50 times the jobs created per month as the last 3 GOP presidents averaged. These 3 Republican presidents averaged about 120,000 jobs per year, half of what was created last month. Very impressive stats right there. And everybody check out Simon Rosenberg on Twitter, at SimonWDC. As you watch the House floor there, you see Matt Gaetz. And I think we have a clip from earlier today of Matt Gaetz saying that if McCarthy were to actually become the speaker, he would resign. And this is what Matt Gaetz was saying to the media. If we have that clip, let's play that clip now. This is Matt Gaetz saying that he will resign if Kevin McCarthy becomes the speaker. Let's play that clip.
If we are able to get
Are
these
you
rules
going to be
changes,
okay,
it will be better.
Congressman? Will you be okay then if there's ultimately a deal struck with moderate Democrats that give Democrats kind of co-control of the committees? You're fine with that?
No, absolutely not. That will not happen. There are 2 potential scenarios here. No, listen, I'm on the floor, Laura. These 212 Democrats are going to vote for Hakeem Jeffries every single time. He is a historic candidate for them. They are not going to cleave off under any circumstance. I assure you that if Democrats join up to elect a moderate Republican, I will resign from the House of Representatives. That is how certain I am. I can assure your viewers that won't happen.
Well, he didn't, to be fair, he didn't say he would resign if McCarthy became the speaker, but we'll see what happens. And let's go. You're seeing another, the group of the defectors right there, and it looks like, if you're looking at their body language, that they're saying, I'm telling them that we're not going to change the votes. I mean, that coalition looks strong. I mean, we'll see if Gaetz and let's pull up the chart of the 7 defectors: Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gaetz, Good, Harris, and Rosendale, the remaining defectors. For those following at home, here is the list that shows the 12 roll call votes. In historic fashion, the MAGA Republicans have been humiliated. We're in day 4, 12 roll call votes. Kevin McCarthy has lost each of the 12 roll call votes, including the most recent 12th roll call vote. He will not become the Speaker of the House based on the 12th roll call vote. Although we went from 21 defections, 14 of those defectors went back to Kevin McCarthy. And there only remains 7 holdouts right now. Kevin McCarthy's magic number is 218. So he's going to need to pick off some of those 7 holdouts. And if you look at the list there, for example, you can see people like Bishop and Breach, and go to that 12th column. And look at the vertical column there, and you can see people like Bishop, where it says M, that means they went to McCarthy this round, and Breachin, and Cloud, and Clyde, and Donalds, and Gosar, and Luna, and Miller, and Norman, and Ogles, and Perry, and Roy, and Self, and Sparks all went to McCarthy. If you see a J, that means that that individual voted for Jim Jordan. If you see an H, it means they voted for Kevin Hearn. And did not vote for Kevin McCarthy. And so no matter what, there is going to be a 13th roll call vote. We can say that for certain. Will unlucky 13 be Kevin McCarthy's lucky roll call vote? Will we see any of the defectors, the 7 remaining defectors, move over to the side of Kevin McCarthy here? Or will this go through the weekend? Will the Republicans try to adjourn? That's been a strategy that they've employed thus far. Kevin McCarthy has tried to entice people to come to his side with pizza. He's been negotiating via pizza. There was supposed to be a pizza. I'm not making this stuff up, folks. There was supposed to be a pizza party that was taking place on Tuesday night. McCarthy canceled the pizza party and then moved the pizza party back to the speaker's office, or as Gates says, the place where he is squatting. This is what Tom Bonnier said. The classic, if you want pizza, you'll have to come to my office move, advantage McCarthy. And we've had a lot of insults, a lot of screaming at each other, going back and forth amongst the MAGA Republicans. You're looking there on the floor. The mood seems to be a little better. I think when the clerk, Cheryl Johnson, who's been doing an incredible job thus far keeping order, and she's the clerk from the 117th Congress, because we don't have a functioning government right now or a functioning House of Representatives. Cheryl Johnson, the clerk of the 117th Congress, is now presiding in this purgatory state between the 117th and the 118th Congress, and she's been doing an incredible job there. She's very shortly going to count the official votes and make it official. Then she's going to ask to what point of order will people rise, and they will say for a 13th roll call vote, or they will say they want to adjourn. The previous adjournments have not been effective. They adjourned to come back to the evening, then voted to adjourn, and then celebrated the adjournment before Thursday's failure, day 3's failure, where they then lost roll call vote after roll call vote. There is progress that has been made, though, in the 12th roll call round. We had 21 defectors. Look at that, Salty. We have the best producer in the game right now doing arrows. I don't know if you did this, Salty, or if we're getting it from someplace else, but I'm going to give you all the credit in the world for these incredible arrows. The arrows that you're seeing, Salty's making it much easier on my dwindling eyesight as I sit here in front of the live stream for hours after hours of who is still the defector and who switched back to Kevin McCarthy or went to McCarthy for the first time. So as you're following along on that chart and you look in the 12th column, the lightly shaded M means that they've now went back to McCarthy or to McCarthy for the first time in the 12th roll call vote. The arrows pointing to J is a vote for Jim Jordan, or H to Kevin Hearn. In other words, people still defecting. And that is the group of Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gates, Good, Harris, and Rosendale, all insurrectionists, all traitors to the United States of America, all Trumpers. And here, rather than trying to do what probably would exist in almost any other modern democracy, make a deal with Democrats to have a coalition government that could actually work and govern productively, where Kevin McCarthy would actually have more power. Kevin McCarthy has sold shares of himself, having absolutely no power at all. He's negotiating from a place of complete and utter weakness from the outset. Like, that's the issue as well. Even if he becomes the Speaker of the House, he's going to be the weakest speaker, and this has been the most embarrassing and humiliating ordeal ever. And his name, historically, will always be viewed as a humiliated loser for what he's put the country through for this. And no matter what, a small group, somewhere between 1 and 5 members of Congress can hold, Republicans can make a no confidence vote and oust McCarthy at any time. So what we're seeing here is actually prelude to what is going to take place for the next 2 years. And for those watching, you'll know that my mood has shifted over time from really the first day and the second day and slightly into the third day, seeing the MAGA chaos, seeing the MAGA Republicans in utter disarray was something, frankly, I enjoyed watching. Yes, I think it's important to expose them. But frankly, by the end of day 3, or as we really got into day 3, I started really reflecting on this more. And, I saw statements like Nancy Pelosi that she gave in the stairwell, and I reflected on statements like President Biden's statements to the press about just what a bad look this is for the United States of America. And as I'm here doing these live broadcasts, I get messages from friends and colleagues on my phone. Lots of people who live in Canada, who live in Europe, who are basically just saying, like, what in the world is going on with your country? And I think we have this clip of President Biden speaking to the younger Ducey on this one and speaking to the press and basically saying, look, we've worked hard to restore our standing here and abroad following the insurrection. And now the Republicans are doing this. Come on, people. This is a bad look. Play the clip.
We're finally coming out of, the first time we're really getting through the whole issue relating to January 6th. Things are settling out, and now, for the first time in 100 years, you can't move. I mean, I really mean it. I know you know international relations. It's not a good look. It's not a good thing. It's the United States of America, and I hope they get their act together.
And what's going to happen if there is no speaker for a week or a month? What's the impact?
Okay. He's right. It is a bad look. You're watching the House floor. You're seeing Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert, part of the remaining group of 7, the 7 defectors who have said under no uncertain terms will McCarthy become the speaker. Will those 7 defectors hold out? 14 of the defectors switch their vote in the 12th roll call round. We've been following that with a very detailed chart here on the MeidasTouch network. I want to show you now, though, going from that clip of President Biden, this is what Nancy Pelosi said following day 2 of the utter MAGA chaos and, frankly, humiliation from the House of Representatives, where she presided over in such a dignified and orderly way, where not only did government actually work, where government worked for the people. Play this clip of Nancy Pelosi.
We're very proud of the Democrats, and you've never seen, none of us has seen anything like this. Disrespect for the institution in a most cavalier, frivolous way. It's quite sad. But let's be hopeful that in the next day or so, as they find their purpose and their unity, they understand why they are here.
And you compare that. Let's go back to the House floor right now, and we will see what's going on.
Significant movement towards Kevin McCarthy in that round. 14 votes moving in his favor. We're waiting, though, for the official tally from the clerk. You're watching live coverage on C-SPAN.
So one of the things that is being reported now on how it went from 21 to 7 of the defectors, part of the deal that McCarthy agreed to was give those individuals, the insurrectionists who defected back, lots of power when it comes to the national debt default limits and to tie conditions to it. And so when we have to deal with the debt ceiling and we have to deal with passing the appropriate resolutions to keep our government running, which will likely take place sometime in the middle of this Congress, what is inevitably going to happen is our country is going to be held hostage by the most extreme elements who are going to try to shut down our government based on preconditions when it comes to the national debt default. Let's go back to the House floor. What we expect to happen now is that the clerk, who's been doing, again, an incredible job, Cheryl Johnson, she's going to give the official count. We're going to go into the 13th roll call. That deal that McCarthy, and McCarthy's already sold every share of himself so that he can be removed at any point in time. As speaker, he has zero authority, zero power. The extremists are going to have full control over issues of national debt, issues over the debt default issues. And so they're going to be able to control all of that and be able to essentially hold our nation hostage when it comes to the debt ceiling. And now the question is, though, is there anything else that Kevin McCarthy is going to sell away to the most extreme elements? McCarthy's going to have no power at all, not trying to cut a deal, not trying to be moderate, not trying to be normal. To be very clear, this is very, very, very dangerous, what is transpiring as well, because you have Kevin McCarthy allowing the most extreme fascist elements will now be running, to the point of what Matt Gaetz said during his speech. Really, McCarthy's role, no matter what, is going to be ceremonial. He's not going to be a real speaker. And all of the individuals that we've seen, all of the craziness and the chaos and the extremism, all of that we're going to see, because let's face it, folks, President Biden is doing a very good job right now. Things are looking good and getting better for our economy right now when you look at the various metrics. And for Republicans, that is something that is very, very bad. They don't want our economy to be doing well. They don't want our economy to be working for the working class, the middle class, for the hardworking Americans. They want our country to only be working for the billionaires, the decamillionaires, the oligarchical members of the weird and deranged MAGA cult. They don't want it working for the rest of us. And so what we're going to see in a few moments, we're going to see the clerk give the final count. The clerk is going to ask a point of order. To what point does a member rise? They're going to elect Kevin McCarthy. We'll see what the defectors do. Let's bring you to the House floor right now.
The tellers agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 431, of which the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 213.
How utterly embarrassing and humiliating, by the way.
The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 211. Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 4. The Honorable Kevin Hern of the state of Oklahoma has received 3. No member-elect having received a majority of the votes cast, the speaker has not been elected. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky rise?
I rise on behalf of the Republican Party to nominate Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the 118th Congress.
These people are such utter freaking clowns. Put those clown emojis in the chat, please.
The gentleman is recognized.
For the past 2 years, one-party Democrat rule has resulted in multiple crises that are harming Americans. Without
So
any
here's the
oversight
thing. When these
or
clowns
accountability
speak, I
from
could
this
let him
body,
inject the disinformation in
Americans
your
are
veins,
facing
but
historic inflation,
I don't like doing that here on the
skyrocketing energy
MeidasTouch Network.
costs, the
So
worst
throw
border
up those
crisis in
clown
American history,
emojis and let's
and
reflect
surging
on the
fentanyl
level of traitors these people are, the frauds they are, the fascists they are. I mean, if you want to listen to this nonsense, I'm happy to put the volume back on. I'll look in the chat. Do you want me to let this clown talk? Or should I just keep ridiculing what a freaking traitor that he is? I'll listen to the chat. I'll see, should I keep pointing out what traitors they are, or do I let them speak? Yeah, I'm not going to give these traitors a platform here. We're here on January 6th, 2023, a date where people like James Comer, people like Kevin McCarthy aided and abetted an insurrection against the United States of America, who tried to topple our government. So when they want to talk about liberals this and they want to talk about Democrats that, all these people here care about is callous power for their weird freaking cult, the cult of Donald Trump, the cult of weird fascist personalities willing to terminate our Constitution. There is absolutely nothing conservative about the people you are looking at right now, these MAGA Republicans. At the very most basic level, they don't want to conserve our government. They want to destroy our institutions. They want to abolish the FBI and Department of Justice so that they can protect domestic terrorists, so they can protect their cult leader, Donald Trump. They fist bump each other and celebrate while our veterans are denied life-saving health care that Democrats are trying to pass based on exposure to toxic burn pits. That's what makes these MAGA Republicans celebrate. They want to celebrate when health care is taken away from people. They want to celebrate when people get paid below minimum wage or try to keep the wages as low as possible. They want to destroy our democracy. They want to destroy our institutions, and they are utterly incompetent people. Go back to the floor for 1 second, but when these people speak, I want to give you appropriate context, what traitors they are.
Education, because of the forced virtual learning that so many of our schools put our children through during the COVID pandemic. Congress ran the debt up at least $3 trillion in the name of COVID-19. Yet, as I mentioned earlier, there has not been a single hearing in the Oversight Committee.
Was Donald Trump the president then?
Potential waste, fraud, or abuse of the COVID funds. Not a single hearing. And we all know, despite what Dr. Fauci said, American tax dollars were sent through EcoHealth Alliance to the Wuhan lab in China for gain-of-function research. But yet Dr. Fauci hasn't come before Congress in the House of Representatives.
Okay, for those telling me
The
to let
American
him
people
speak,
deserve answers on
he's
COVID-19.
spending his time
Speaker
attacking
Kevin
Dr.
McCarthy
Fauci.
has given the Republican majority the tools necessary to make that
By the way, that shows you the deficit under Trump more than anyone else. The deficit's actually reduced under Democratic
The
presidents
Democrats have
significantly.
spent the past 6 years investigating a president for potential wrongdoing in Ukraine and Russia. Now, let me say this loud and clear. The Republicans will also investigate a president for potential wrongdoing in Ukraine and Russia, as well as China. The American people have a lot of questions for Dr. Fauci, Christopher Wray, Merrick Garland, Secretary Mayorkas. We can't have those questions. We can't ask those questions until we get organized and elect our speaker. The role of the Oversight Committee under Speaker Pelosi was a full-time committee to harass the previous president, a committee to advocate for wage social issues, which the Oversight Committee had absolutely no jurisdiction, and a committee totally uninterested in the American taxpayer. In a Republican majority under Speaker Kevin McCarthy and many of my friends embedded in these negotiations, the House Oversight Committee with strong members like Byron Donalds and Andy Biggs and Jim Jordan will return to its original mission of identifying waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement in the federal government and holding unelected bureaucrats accountable.
Put that image of Comer back up so everybody knows who's speaking right now.
The forgotten working men and women's voices
Comer calls for
will finally be
FBI
heard and
to
represented.
be dismantled.
And in a Republican majority under Speaker Kevin McCarthy, this broken Congress will finally be fixed, and we will return to regular order, and we will drag those senators kicking and screaming along with us every step of the way. We will return to regular order. We will get the backs of the American taxpayers. This is the people's house. Let's get to work. Madam Clerk, I'm proud to nominate Kevin McCarthy to be the next Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, and I yield back.
So you watched an utter clown traitor right there, Representative Comer talking. The things that he focused on was investigating Dr. Fauci, investigating Ukraine, investigating the January 6th committee. Those were his main focus.
Gentlewoman from Texas
Here's the Democrats.
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate a great leader, a unifier, not a divider, Hakeem Jeffries, for Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
We are on day 4, the 13th vote, and House Democrats continue to stand united with Hakeem Jeffries, with him and for him, because he is a uniter, not a divider, and a positive force of nature. 2 days ago, during the 4th, 5th, maybe the 6th roll call, a nominator claimed this process should not be considered dysfunction. Madam Clerk, their process didn't begin this week. They've had months to figure this out. And Americans should have profound concerns about what this portends. As we gather here in this chamber on this solemn day, the 2nd anniversary of January 6th, when members of law enforcement were under siege, when there was an attempted coup, an insurrection that will live in infamy, what we lived through was an assault on our republic and on our democracy from within. On that day, when my colleagues and I were trapped in this gallery, the terrorists who assaulted our police officers could be heard banging on these doors, breaking these windows, and they were here to prevent the certification of a free and fair election. I shudder to think what a Republican majority's inability to govern would have meant on that day, and what it could mean in the future for those of us who believe in defending our democracy abroad, and now more than ever, here at home. On this painful anniversary, thankfully, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries made sure that we came together to mark the moment, to honor our law enforcement, recognize the lives lost as a result of that day, honor the families and the survivors, and to ensure that we recommit to our republic and our democracy. That is the kind of speaker that our nation needs. We are now 4 days into what should be the 118th Congress, and the House of Representatives has no committees, no rules, no classified briefings, no members who have taken their oaths to serve our country. There are no debates happening on this floor about addressing the challenges we face at home or around the globe. No votes on legislation to tackle the challenges facing the American people. Madam Clerk, they told the American people they wanted to win the majority to fight inflation. The only thing they're fighting is each other. These 4 days have tested House Republicans' ability to govern, and they have failed. With Hakeem Jeffries as our Speaker, Congress can continue to deliver common sense, bipartisan solutions for the American people. Instead, what we've seen unfold before our very eyes is exactly what's in store for the country over the next 2 years under Republican control. And this should be deeply concerning to the American people who expect us to do our jobs and fulfill even the most fundamental functions of this institution, like voting on the debt ceiling to fund expenditures we've already made. What if this happens then? What if we default on our debts because of the Republican majority's inability to govern? What impact will that have on our economy or on the global economy? And in less than 9 months, in September, we have a vote to fund the government, to pay for our military, Social Security, Medicare, and other obligations. What happens on September 30th when government funding runs out and they're in charge? With Hakeem Jeffries as our Speaker, we can continue to advance an agenda that puts people over politics, just as we did in the 117th Congress with a majority as slim as theirs. Es un gran honor nominar a mi amigo. Madam Clerk, as co-chair of the House Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, and in accordance with the vote of the House Democratic Caucus, I'm honored to present for election to the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 118th Congress the name of a man of integrity and intellect who is bold and brilliant, and most importantly, a man who leads with love, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, representative from the state of New York.
One of the developments we saw as that speech was going on, Andy Bix called Eli Crane over to talk to him, and Crane was sitting with Biggs, Good, Rosendale, Gates, and Boebert. Let's see if the defectors are going to nominate a candidate. They're all sitting together now, the defectors. Let's see what happens.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
So here, the defectors looks like did not nominate anybody on this round. So let us see if this 13th roll call round could be the round where a speaker will be selected. What we've normally been used to is someone from the defector group.
Jeffries.
The first name we're going to see if there's a switch here is going to be Biggs. We're going to look for B for Biggs as they go down. If Biggs switches over here to McCarthy, it's very possible on this 13th roll call vote that McCarthy is going to have the votes. We will see if this 13th roll call vote, he will become the speaker.
All red.
It should be noted that Representative Ralph Norman, when he changed his vote, said that in order to win his vote, McCarthy would need to be willing to shut down the government and default on the debt.
Armstrong.
That is something that McCarthy agreed to.
Arrington.
As Rex Chapman put it, Republicans just made a
Harrington.
deal behind closed doors to destroy your 401k and take away your
Jeffries.
Social Security and Medicare.
Babin.
But at least to get Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the
McCarthy.
House. As Brian Tyler
Bacon.
Cohen said, Kevin McCarthy just
McCarthy.
agreed to hold the entire U.S.
Bayard.
economy hostage to force cuts to
McCarthy.
Social Security and Medicare.
Alderson.
That's what he is agreeing to. Republicans are economic terrorists coming for seniors.
Alderson.
Let's take a look at
Mallett.
Biggs. If Biggs switches here to
Jeffries.
McCarthy, I think McCarthy's going to have it
Banks.
this round. Let's see.
McCarthy. Barr. McCarthy. Barragan. Jeffries. Bean of Florida. McCarthy. Beatty. Jeffries. Bentz. McCarthy. Barra. Jeffries. Bergman. McCarthy.
Getting close to Biggs.
Beyer. Jeffries. Bice. McCarthy. Biggs. Jordan.
So Biggs
Colorado.
voting Jordan, one of the 7 holdouts. They did not do a speech here. They
Colorado.
voted other. Let's see if those
McCarthy.
7 continue to vote other here.
Bishop
And
of Georgia.
that was the first big one we were looking for.
Jeffries.
Biggs voted Jordan
Bishop
in the
of North
12th round.
Carolina.
In the 13th roll call
McCarthy.
vote. You see that Bishop who
Blumenauer.
switched to McCarthy in the 12th, once again,
Jeffries.
went to McCarthy in the 13th. And now the key names for us to
Rochester.
really look at for those
Jeffries.
following along, look at the arrows right here.
Bobert.
Here we go.
Jordan.
Okay, so there you have Lauren Boebert again voting Jim Jordan.
Bonamici.
She voted Kevin Hearn last time. That's
Jeffries.
2 defectors,
Boss.
remaining defectors. Gates will
McCarthy.
remain a defector, so there will be 3
Bowman.
defectors. The next key name I want
Jeffries.
everyone to look at, pull back
Boyle
up the
of
list one more
Pennsylvania.
time, is Eli
Jeffries.
Crane. Let's focus on the
Burkeen.
name of Eli Crane.
McCarthy. Brown.
Remember, McCarthy needs
Jeffries.
218 right now. That's the
Brownlee.
magic number.
Jeffries.
There were
Buchanan.
21 defectors going into the
McCarthy.
12th roll call.
Buck.
By the end of the 12th roll call, there were
Buck.
7 defectors. Will those 7 defectors be
Sean.
whittled down less? Will they remain 7
McCarthy.
defectors?
Baczynski.
One of the big
Jeffries.
indications of that is going to be when we get to
Burchett.
C, when we get to Crane.
McCarthy.
Let's just watch what happens.
Burgess. McCarthy. Burleson. McCarthy. Bush. Jeffries. Calvert. McCarthy. Kamek. McCarthy. Caraveo. Jeffries. Carbajal. Jeffries. Cardenas. Jeffries. Carey. McCarthy. Carl. McCarthy. Carson. Jeffries. Carter of Georgia. McCarthy. Carter of Louisiana. Jeffries. Carter of Texas. McCarthy. Cartwright. Jeffries. Kassar. Jeffries. Case. Jeffries. Caston. Jeffries. Castor of Florida. Jeffries. Castro of Texas. Jeffries. Chavez DeRemer. McCarthy. Sherferless McCormick. Jeffries. Chu. Jeffries. Cicilline. Jeffries. Siscomani. McCarthy. Clark of Massachusetts. Jeffries. Clark of New York. Jeffries. Cleaver. Jeffries. Klein.
Getting close to Crane.
Cloud. McCarthy. Clyburn. Jeffries. Clyde. McCarthy. Cohen. Jeffries. Cole.
Getting very
McCarthy.
close to Crane.
Collins. McCarthy. Comer. McCarthy. Connolly. Jeffries. Correa. Correa. Costa. Jeffries. Courtney. Jeffries. Craig. Jeffries. Crane. Jordan.
And there you have sticking strong, not voting for McCarthy.
Crawford.
That's one of the big ones we were looking for. Gates is
Crenshaw.
next. Gates is not going to vote.
McCarthy. Crockett.
McCarthy. He'll vote
Jeffries.
Jordan.
Crow. Jeffries. Cuellar. Jeffries. Curtis. McCarthy.
And as someone pointed
Davis
out,
of
there is
Kansas.
a vacancy today.
Jeffries.
Given the vacancy, the number actually is
Davidson.
217 right now, not 218.
McCarthy.
Let's see, though, if those 7
Davis of
holdouts
Illinois.
remain.
Jeffries. Davis of North Carolina. Jeffries. Dean of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. DeGette. Jeffries. Dela Cruz. McCarthy. DeLauro. Jeffries. Del Bene. Jeffries. DeLuzio. Jeffries. Dusanier. Jeffries. Desjardins. McCarthy. Diaz-Pizito. McCarthy. Diaz-Balart. Diaz-Balart. Dingle. Jeffries. Doggett. Jeffries. Donalds. Donalds. Duarte. McCarthy. Duncan. Duncan. Dunn of Florida. Dunn of Florida. McCarthy. Edwards. McCarthy. Elsie. McCarthy. Emmer. McCarthy. Escobar. Jeffries. Eshu. Jeffries. Espaillat. Jeffries. Estes. McCarthy. Evans. Jeffries. Ezell. McCarthy. Fallon. McCarthy. Finstra. McCarthy. Ferguson. McCarthy. Finstad. McCarthy. Fishbach. McCarthy. Fitzgerald. McCarthy. Fitzpatrick. McCarthy. Fleischman. McCarthy. Fletcher. Jeffries. Flood. McCarthy. Foster. Jeffries. Fushi. Jeffries. Fox. McCarthy. Lois Frankel. Jeffries. C. Scott Franklin. McCarthy. Frost. Jeffries. Fry. McCarthy. Fulcher. McCarthy. Gates. Jordan.
There's the Gates vote for Jordan right there. Let's
Gallagher. McCarthy.
the key thing I want to see if there's going to still be the 5 defectors.
Jeffries.
Let's pull back up the list so people
Garamendi.
know what to be watching for next.
Jeffries.
As we pull
Garbarino.
up the list, you see Gates.
McCarthy.
The next one we're going to
Mike
look
Garcia.
for is
McCarthy.
good. Let's see what happens.
Robert Garcia.
Let's see what happens
Jeffries.
with good.
Garcia of Illinois. Jeffries. Garcia of Texas. Jeffries. Jimenez. McCarthy. Golden of Maine. Jeffries. Goldman of New York. Jeffries. Gomez. Jeffries. Tony Gonzalez. McCarthy. Vicente Gonzalez. Jeffries. Good of Virginia.
Looks
Jordan.
like that group is holding strong right there. That's 5.
Gooden of Texas. McCarthy. Gosar. McCarthy. Gottheimer. Jeffries. Granger. McCarthy. Graves of Louisiana. McCarthy. Graves of Missouri. McCarthy. Green of Tennessee. McCarthy. Green of Texas.
Cast my vote on behalf of the thousands of black people who were lynched mercilessly in our country. I cast my vote.
Jeffries. Green of Georgia. McCarthy. Griffith. McCarthy. Grijalva. Jeffries. Grothman. McCarthy. Guest. McCarthy. Guthrie. McCarthy. Hageman. McCarthy. Harder of California. Jeffries. Harris. McCarthy. Harshbarger. McCarthy. Hayes. Jeffries. Hearn. McCarthy. Higgins of Louisiana. McCarthy. Higgins of New York. Jeffries. Hill. McCarthy. Hines. Jeffries. Henson.
You heard the cheers right there as
McCarthy.
Harris, who was a
Horsford.
defector, who remained a defector in the 12th
Jeffries.
round, went to McCarthy in this
Houghton.
round. So the group of 7 is
McCarthy.
now one less.
Houlihan. Jeffries. Hoyer. Jeffries. Hoyle of Oregon. Jeffries. Hudson. McCarthy. Huffman. Jeffries. Huizinga. McCarthy. Hunt. Hunt. Issa. Issa. McCarthy. Ivy. Jeffries. Jackson of Illinois. Jeffries. Jackson of North Carolina. Jeffries. Jackson of Texas. McCarthy.
So for those watching now,
Jackson
we just
Lee.
saw a flip. Andy Harris will be backing McCarthy on the 13th ballot. However, with those 5 votes
Jeffries.
for Jim Jordan there, as
Jacobs.
of now, looks like this will almost certainly be going to a
Jacobs.
14th ballot.
Jeffries.
But one more of the defectors has now went with McCarthy.
James.
As we pull back the list,
McCarthy.
so
Joey
everybody
Paul.
following along, with
Jeffries.
Harris gone, we're going to update this list for
Jeffries.
the next round. Who we'll be looking at
Jeffries.
is Biggs, Obert, Crane, Gate, Good, and we'll be looking at Rosendale. Let's go back to the floor.
Johnson of Georgia.
Brad was applauding for Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Johnson of Louisiana. McCarthy. Johnson of Ohio. McCarthy. Johnson of South Dakota. McCarthy. Jordan. McCarthy. Joyce of Ohio.
So the group of 7 is back now to
Joyce
a
of
group of
Pennsylvania.
6. We'll see what
McCarthy.
Rosendale does. Last
Campbell
time,
Dove.
Rosendale said, I'm voting for Kevin, and then did Hearn.
Captor.
So let's pay attention. This is big. Let's see what Rosendale does. Is the group going to be now
Captor.
down to 5, or is the group going to be
Kane,
6?
New Jersey.
The group of 7 has
McCarthy.
lost a member. Let's see what
Keating.
Rosendale does. Let's go back to the
Jeffries.
House floor. Everybody, this is big.
Kelly
Let's
of
pay
Illinois.
attention to Rosendale.
Jeffries. Kelly of Mississippi. McCarthy. Kelly of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Khanna. Jeffries. Kiggins of Virginia. McCarthy. Kildee. Jeffries. Kiley. McCarthy. Kilmer. Jeffries. Kim of California. McCarthy. Kim of New Jersey. Jeffries. Krishnamurthy. Jeffries. Custer. Jeffries. Kustoff. McCarthy. LaHood. McCarthy. LaLota. McCarthy. LaMalfa. McCarthy. Lamborn. McCarthy. Landsman. Jeffries. Langworthy. McCarthy.
By the way, make sure you hit the subscribe
Larson
button
of
right now.
Washington.
Make sure you're subscribed to this channel.
Jeffries.
On our way to
Larson
1
of
million
Connecticut.
subscribers. Hit the
Jeffries.
subscribe button right now. It's free to subscribe to
Latham.
this YouTube channel.
McCarthy. LaTurner. McCarthy. Lawler.
The Honorable Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Lee of California. Jeffries. Lee of Florida. McCarthy. Lee of Nevada. Jeffries. Lee of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. Leisure Fernandez. Jeffries. Lesko. McCarthy. Letlow. McCarthy. Levin. Jeffries. Liu. Jeffries. Lofgren. Jeffries. Loudermilk. McCarthy. Lucas. McCarthy. Luke Meyer. McCarthy. Luna. Luna. McCarthy. Latrell. McCarthy.
Luna, who you just
Lynch.
heard, was one of the defectors
Jeffries.
in the 12th roll
Mace.
call round that then went to McCarthy. She said
Mace.
McCarthy again. And again, if you're following along
Magaziner.
on our handy chart right here,
Jeffries.
the arrows show who the
Valeotakis.
defectors were in the 12th roll
McCarthy.
call. If you look at
Manning.
Andy Harris, who was
McCarthy.
remaining a defector in the 12th roll
Manning.
call, though, voted McCarthy
Jeffries.
in this round.
Massey.
Still not enough for
McCarthy.
McCarthy to win this
Mass.
roll call vote. So McCarthy will lose the 13th roll call vote, but picks up Harris,
Mass.
which is a supposed good development and
McCarthy.
a day filled with humiliation.
Matsui.
We're now looking at R.
Jeffries.
Rosendale.
McMath.
Because will this group of
Jeffries.
6, which seems
McCarthy.
at least 5 of them seem unbreakable.
McCall. McCarthy. McLean. McCarthy. McClintock.
You're wondering
McCarthy.
why they were clapping. They were clapping
McCollum.
because McCarthy's name was called. And the fact that McCarthy's smiling and
McCollum.
happy right there, and
Jeffries.
it's just utterly humiliating to watch.
McCormick.
He would put our country through this.
McCarthy.
They would put our country through this.
McGarvey. Jeffries. McGovern. Jeffries. McHenry. McCarthy. Meeks. Jeffries. Menendez. Jeffries. Maine. Jeffries. Muser. McCarthy. Mfume. Jeffries. Miller of Illinois. McCarthy. Miller of Ohio. McCarthy. Miller of West Virginia. McCarthy. Miller Meeks. McCarthy. Mills. Mills. Molinaro. McCarthy. Molinar. McCarthy. Mooney. McCarthy. Moore of Alabama. McCarthy. Moore of Utah. Moore of Utah. Moore of Wisconsin. Jeffries. Moran. McCarthy. Morelli. Jeffries. Moskowitz. Jeffries. Moulton. Jeffries. Mervan. Jeffries. Mullen. Jeffries. Murphy. McCarthy. Nadler. Jeffries. Napolitano. Jeffries. Neal. Jeffries. Neguse. Jeffries. Nels. McCarthy. Newhouse. McCarthy. Nickel. Jeffries. Norcross. Jeffries. Norman. McCarthy. None of Iowa. McCarthy. Obernolte. McCarthy. Ocasio-Cortez. Jeffries. Ogles. McCarthy. Omar. Jeffries. Owens. McCarthy. Pallone. Jeffries. Palmer. McCarthy. Panetta. Jeffries. Pappas. Jeffries.
Okay, so if you're
Pasquarello.
following on the list right now, we're getting close as we head down to
Pasquarello.
the R's.
Jeffries.
Let's pull up the list right there.
Payne.
We're looking at Rosendale
Jeffries.
right now.
Pelosi.
Scott Perry was a defector.
Jeffries.
Let's see if he defects again.
Altola.
Goes back to McCarthy, rather.
Jeffries. Pence. McCarthy. Perez. Jeffries. Perry.
Perry's not paying attention.
Peters. Jeffries. Pedersen. Jeffries.
It's like
Kruger.
Perry did not respond there.
McCarthy. Phillips. Jeffries. Pingree.
The next one I want you to focus on is R.
Hokan.
Rosendale.
Jeffries. Porter. Jeffries. Posey. McCarthy. Presley. Jeffries. Quigley. Jeffries. Ramirez. Jeffries. Raskin. Jeffries. Reschenthaler. McCarthy. Rogers of Washington.
Okay, we're getting to the big one, Rosendale. Pay attention.
Rogers of Alabama. McCarthy. Rogers of Kentucky. McCarthy. Rose. McCarthy. Rosendale. Jordan.
So that group of 6 staying strong.
Ross.
Scott Perry
Jeffries.
has not voted. Scott Perry
Rouser.
was a defector,
McCarthy.
then went for McCarthy
Roy.
in the last round. Let's see what he's
McCarthy.
doing here.
Ruiz.
The
Jeffries.
question is how are those 6 going to
Ruppersberger.
move to McCarthy? McCarthy's already given
Jeffries.
so many concessions that
Rutherford.
he has zero power to begin with.
McCarthy.
To allow those 6 to
Ryan.
vote for him, he's going to have to sell out our
Jeffries.
entire country.
Salazar. McCarthy. Salinas. Jeffries. Sanchez. Jeffries. Santos. McCarthy. Sarbanes. Jeffries.
That was the fraud trader, George
Scalise.
Santos, right there.
McCarthy.
You see how
Scanlon.
important that George Santos vote
Jeffries.
actually is going to be. for Kevin
Schakowsky.
McCarthy that they're willing to
Jeffries.
have. George Santos does represent
Schiff.
who the MAGA Republican Party
Jeffries.
is today in utter fraud in every aspect. But you see how
Snyder.
important that vote is.
Jeffries.
Let's go back to the floor.
Skolton. Jeffries. Schreier. Jeffries. Schweikert. McCarthy. Austin Scott. McCarthy. David Scott. Jeffries. Scott of Virginia. Jeffries. Self. McCarthy. Sessions. McCarthy. Sewell. Jeffries. Sherman. Jeffries. Sherrill. Jeffries. Simpson. McCarthy. Slotkin. Slotkin. Smith of Missouri. McCarthy. Smith of Nebraska. McCarthy. Smith of New Jersey. McCarthy. Smith of Washington. Jeffries. Smucker. McCarthy. Sorensen. Jeffries. Soto. Jeffries. Spanberger. Jeffries. Sparts. McCarthy. Stansberry. Jeffries. Stanton. Jeffries. Stauber. McCarthy. Steele. McCarthy. Stefanik. McCarthy. Style. McCarthy. Stubbe. McCarthy. Stevens. Jeffries. Stewart. McCarthy. Strickland. Jeffries. Strong. McCarthy. Swalwell. Jeffries. Sykes. Jeffries. Takano. Jeffries. Tenney. McCarthy. Tanadar. Jeffries. Thompson of California. Jeffries. Thompson of Mississippi. Jeffries. Thompson of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Tiffany. McCarthy. Timmons. Timmons. Titus. Jeffries. Tlaib. Jeffries. Takuda. Jeffries. Tonko. Jeffries. Torres of California. Jeffries. Torres of New York. Jeffries. Trahan. Jeffries. Trone. Jeffries. Turner. McCarthy. Underwood. Jeffries. Valadeo. McCarthy. Van Drew. McCarthy. Van Dyne. McCarthy. Van Orden. McCarthy. Vargas. Jeffries. Vasquez. Jeffries. VC. Jeffries. Velasquez. Jeffries. Wagner. McCarthy. Wahlberg. Wahlberg. McCarthy. Waltz. McCarthy. Wasserman Schultz. Jeffries. Waters. Jeffries. Watson Coleman. Jeffries. Weber of Texas. McCarthy. Webster of Florida. McCarthy. Winstrup. McCarthy. Westerman. Westerman. Wexton. Jeffries. Wild. Jeffries. Williams of Georgia. Jeffries. Williams of New York. McCarthy. Williams of Texas. McCarthy. Wilson of Florida. Jeffries. Wilson of South Carolina. McCarthy. Whitman. McCarthy. Womack. McCarthy. Yackham. McCarthy. Zinke. McCarthy.
The reading clerk will now call the names of the members-elect who did not answer the first call of the roll.
Adderholt. McCarthy. Emiday. McCarthy. Arrington. McCarthy. Balterson. McCarthy. Buck. Buck. Klein. McCarthy. Correa. Jeffries. Diaz-Balart. McCarthy. Donalds. McCarthy. Duncan. McCarthy. Hunt. Hunt. Captor. Jeffries. Mace. McCarthy. Mills. McCarthy. Moore of Utah. McCarthy.
As we're going through the count right now, you may have saw when they went to Representative Trone, a Democrat, you saw the crowd erupt.
McCarthy.
Let's see what Perry did. Perry voted for McCarthy again. You may have seen the crowd erupt. That's because Trone, the Democrat, missed the 12th vote, but came back for the 13th there. He had surgery, and so that raised the threshold from 216 to 217. There was some confusion. Was it 216, 217? Is because David Trone was actually in surgery. He came back. There he is right after surgery, and he voted for Hakeem Jeffries,
McCarthy.
raising the threshold to 217. That's why you saw that eruption of clapping as the threshold was raised, with the Democrats being united. Incredible moment.
Their members-elect who did not answer the call of the roll, they may come to the well and vote at this time.
Correct. For those in the chat, the number is now 217 that McCarthy needed, given that Trone has now returned to vote. So Representative Trone, a Democrat, let's pull back up the image right now. Everyone heard the clapping and everyone was wondering, why was everybody clapping at that moment? You know, it wasn't one of the people who we saw on our list. It's because Democrat Representative David Trone said 7 a.m. surgery, 2 p.m. back at the Capitol, still wearing my slippers and hospital socks. Time to vote for Hakeem Jeffries. That is what he did. Democrats staying united there. And you see that number at 212. That number was at 211 in the previous round. That's why the threshold had actually decreased to 216 in the previous round. Pull back up the list right now of the defectors throughout the rounds. In the 12th round right there, those were the remaining defectors were Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gates, Good, Harris, and Rosendale. Here we have Harris joining the McCarthy side, so we are down to 6 defectors now: Rosendale, Good, Gates, Crane, Boebert, and Biggs, who all seem pretty unbreakable, although in order for Kevin McCarthy to gain their support, as he gained the other 14 or now 15 others support, he had to make promises to them to essentially bring our government down to its needs. That's what they were talking about. In fact, when you saw the speech that was given by Comer, we can go back and show people what's going on the House floor now. Not much action there, but still want everyone to get some visibility there. What Comer said, what the team McCarthy fascists, if you will, what their main focus was in this speech, in this 13th roll call vote, was attacking Dr. Fauci, attacking Ukraine and President Zelensky, and attacking the January 6th committee investigation into Donald Trump, and stating that the main priority, if McCarthy is speaker, is going to be to attack the Department of Justice and the FBI, to attack Dr. Fauci, and to try to defund Ukraine. So that was the speech in favor of McCarthy in this round. That is what they believe McCarthy will deliver to them. That's what took place before the 13th roll call vote, when James Comer, member of Congress, gave the speech in favor of McCarthy. For those watching internationally in parliamentary systems where deals are forged to actually govern, there's Kevin McCarthy. I mean, I think Kevin McCarthy is also realizing, well, there's nothing I can do. This is going to be dragged out, it seems like, for how are we going to break these 6? And there's nothing that you're seeing being done, I think, to try to come up with the deal with those 6. And so does this go on forever? Let me show you a clip earlier of Matt Gaetz when Matt Gaetz gave a speech, and Matt Gaetz said, McCarthy's never going to be the speaker. Not today, not a month from now, not a year from now. He's not going to be the speaker. He said that leading to the 12th roll call vote. There was no speeches in the 13th roll call vote in favor of Jim Jordan. That's in the others category as well. But let's play this clip, if we can, of Gaetz saying McCarthy's never going to be the speaker. This is from earlier in the day. If we got it, play the clip.
Speaker, my colleague from California, Mr. Garcia, knows the incredibly high regard I hold him in. He is a patriot. I deeply, deeply admire him, but I must take some exception with some of the comments he made in his nomination of Mr. McCarthy. First, he said that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position. You only earn the position of Speaker of the House if you can get the votes. Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year. And so one must wonder, Madam Clerk, is this an exercise in vanity for someone who has done the math, taken the counts, and is putting this institution through something that absolutely is avoidable? My colleague, Mr. Garcia.
As one person on Twitter put it, Kobe93 writes, mind you, getting elected speaker was supposed to be the easy part. Getting elected speaker was supposed to be the easy part, literally just establishing the government. But as I was saying, those watching internationally with parliamentary systems where they see coalitions that form, where, you know, what should be taking place here is that Kevin McCarthy goes to the Democrats and says, let's have a normal functioning government. That's not what Kevin McCarthy did. Instead, he sold shares of himself. By the way, if McCarthy did that, he'd actually be a far more powerful speaker and actually accomplish and get things done and have some sort of legacy. But that's not what the MAGA Republican Fascist Party is. They want to undermine and destroy our government and go more extreme. So the deal that Kevin McCarthy has to make with all of these extremists is to basically cripple our economy. Like what Ralph Norman, who switched, he was a defector, what he said in an interview before he switched back to McCarthy is that in order to win his vote, McCarthy would need to be willing to shut down the government and default on debt. That was the precondition. And McCarthy has said he's willing to do that. So as Rex Chapman put it, Republicans just made a deal behind closed doors to destroy your 401k and take away your Social Security and Medicare. But at least Kevin McCarthy could become the king of the ashes, essentially, of everything that he burns down. Brian Tyler Cohen put it great as well. He wrote, Kevin McCarthy just agreed to hold the entire U.S. economy hostage to force cuts to Social Security and Medicare. That's what he's agreeing to. Republicans are economic terrorists coming for seniors. The media needs to report it as such. That is how we report it here on the MeidasTouch Network. That's why we ask you to subscribe here to the MeidasTouch Network. We are 100% independent, 100% accountable to you. We have zero outside investors at all here on the MeidasTouch Network. And so one way you could support it, if you want, no pressure. Either way, go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. You could check out some of the membership package there, become honorary producers and so much more. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch, support independent media. Also check out store.MeidasTouch.com. There it is as the camera pans in on the empty speaker's chair on January 6th, 2023, 2 years after an insurrection that tried to topple our democracy. The insurrectionists are now on the House floor again, showing that insurrectionists can't govern and that insurrectionists just want to destroy our government. Where do we go next with that group of 6 remaining defectors standing strong? Is there a way to compromise with them, which basically means the attempt to try to destroy our country even more because they've given up? They've made no efforts to try to make a deal. There's no such thing, by the way, as a moderate side to this Republican Party. I'm sick and tired of the meeting. Oh, well, the moderate conservatives. There's no one even in that right-wing fascist party that calls itself the Republican Party that is conservative, period. They don't believe in conserving institutions. We're watching it here right now. They want to destroy institutions, and their cult leader, Donald Trump, calls for terminating the Constitution. So complete BS. You call yourself conservative and you support election denialism. You support violent fascist insurrections against the United States of America. There's nothing conservative about that. That's why I say if you looked at my views, probably would lean more progressive and liberal. But I think I'm far more conservative than the fascists who want to overthrow our democracy. I believe in our institutions. I don't think we should abolish the FBI and the Department of Justice. I don't think we should abolish laws about espionage. I don't believe in QAnon cults. I think I'm far more conservative than this fascist nightmare MAGA extremist party. You're looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene there. Let's pull up this clip earlier in the day where Marjorie Taylor Greene took a shot at Lauren Boebert. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, saying that Boebert is not a serious person and is not being serious throughout these proceedings. Got Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that, by the way. Let's play this clip from earlier in the day.
I think the American people, no matter how you vote, are sick and tired of drama, and this is nothing but drama. We're on multiple days now with multiple candidates from this group, so I'm not sure how Lauren Boebert on one hand can demand so much out of Kevin McCarthy, but then demand nothing out of someone else and be willing to vote for them to be speaker. That's not serious. I don't think that's leadership, and I really see it as more obstruction than progress.
There you have Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that this is creating unnecessary drama, saying that Lauren Boebert is not serious. By the way, true, but you have Marjorie Taylor Greene right now, who by all accounts would essentially be the de facto Speaker of the House under this arrangement. She'd be the one wielding the power. That's why she's supporting Kevin McCarthy, because she would be leading the Republican Party today. You're talking about someone who talks about Jewish space lasers and says other anti-Semitic things. There's Kevin McCarthy like pretending to laugh and just showing what a phony that he is right there, and having a grand old time, the grand old party right there for you. This is hilarious. How funny is this? That America looks like complete trash right now thanks to you Republican fascists, because you can't have a freaking government out there laughing. You know, if there was a modicum of leadership here, he'd be speaking to the press right now. He'd be speaking right now, and he would be saying, look, the world is watching right now. This is completely humiliating. We need to have a government. You see the support here. If you don't support me, I am going to find Democratic members and cut a deal. Do something that a leader would do. But instead, we're going to be heading into our 14th roll call vote as the world watches, as McCarthy's out there doing his fake laughter on the House floor, as Marjorie Taylor Greene, who talks about Jewish space lasers, who literally stalks survivors of school shootings and mocks them and attacks them. She's out there saying, oh, Lauren Boebert's creating all of this drama. You have Republicans who are coming up to speak, who have made statements about raping 15-year-old girls that they had to apologize to when it was discovered. That's some of the speakers that we had yesterday. We have all of this going on in the background where the leader of CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Group that holds the sign, "We are domestic terrorists," was just accused yesterday of groping someone's genitals in the Herschel Walker campaign. And there's even audio about this, about Schlapp doing that. Schlapp, by the way, was the person who hosted the Christmas party that the MAGA Supreme Court justices attended. And you have the large media networks still calling these fascist conservatives. Oh, very conservative. What the American people want right now is humanity. What the American people want right now is normalcy. What the American people want is for the country to work together, frankly, like President Biden was doing in Kentucky. And while I significantly disagree with Mitch McConnell on most issues, at least Mitch McConnell recognized that an infrastructure bill that brought more jobs here in the United States of America, that improved our infrastructure in places like Kentucky, that actually builds bridges. That's where President Biden was spending his week, actually building bridges. I think we have, in stark contrast to what we're seeing here, I think we've got part of the speech given by President Biden in Kentucky, where President Biden makes a joke about Mitch McConnell, and he talks about why he's in Kentucky. Let's play that video so you can get a sense of normalcy, please. Play the clip.
Folks, I'm especially happy to be here with my friend and colleague in many years, and I might add, longest serving leader in the United States Senate, Senator Mitch McConnell. Mitch, it's great to be with you. I asked permission if I could say something nice about him. I didn't want to. I said I campaigned for him or against him, whichever helped him most. But Mitch, it's you know, it wasn't easy, and to get this done, and it wouldn't have gotten done no matter all the work so many others have done, and by writing the legislation and dropping it in, it wouldn't have happened without your hand. It just wouldn't have gotten done, and I want to thank you for that. And you know, we have to find common ground to get major legislation done in any circumstance ever. But
we have to find common ground to get major legislation done. Very, very true. And we're seeing the exact opposite of that right now. We're seeing utter chaos. Day 4, we've been streaming essentially 9 hours each day. Will we hit 36 hours after today of live streaming what's been taking place on the House floor? Kevin McCarthy has lost the 13th roll call vote. Will there be a 14th roll call vote today? Will the Republicans vote to adjourn? Democrats staying united throughout this process. In fact, there was one member on the Democratic side who had a surgery at 7 a.m. Representative David Trone. Pull up this post by David Trone. 7 a.m. surgery. You may have seen that Hakeem Jeffries in the 12th round only had 211, which lowered the threshold for McCarthy to 216 based on other absences. And so there was some debate. Was it 216? Was it 217? It was actually 216 in the 12th round. But Representative David Trone, in his hospital socks, went back to the House floor after surgery, voted for Hakeem Jeffries, as he said he was going to do there, raising the threshold for McCarthy to 217 votes that McCarthy's going to need to win. He did not get that on the 13th roll call. He fell short. So we see what's going on the House floor. No business as usual, I guess we can say. We are in limbo between the 117th Congress and the 118th Congress. The MAGA Republican Party is making an utter mockery of this, and the person making perhaps the most mockery of this as well, in addition to Kevin McCarthy, is Donald Trump, who looks weaker and more desperate than ever. Donald Trump on his social media platform posted this cartoon of himself pretending to be the speaker after he garnered 1 vote yesterday. You think about this, like how humiliating this is. I mean, there's so many things I could say. Look, he's deranged. And it's really humiliating to the country that this exists. I mean, this is really the best thing that Putin can possibly ask for. If you saw this, you know, I do it in the old work that I did before MeidasTouch. I did a lot of transactional deals as well, for movies. And I'd read a lot of scripts. And if I read this in a script, I would say this is, I can't believe that this is actually reality. But compare what you're looking at here. This is what Donald Trump is posting when he got 1 vote, and he's bragging about this. His tongue's out. He's touching his belly. This is what's going on today with President Biden handing out medals to police officers, heroes, in January 6th.
But this is who these people, these extraordinary Americans are. Heroic law enforcement officers. As Congressman Benny Thompson said, a man of immense character and honor himself eloquently said about these officers, he said, quote, "You held the line that day, and what was on the line was our democracy. And history will remember your names. And history will remember your names. They'll remember your courage. They'll remember your bravery. They'll remember your extraordinary commitments to your fellow Americans." It's not hyperbole. That's a fact. That's a fact. And folks, history also going to remember your instincts to respond, to do something, as you did. And as we all watched, this is the irony of it all America watched it on television and saw it repeated and repeated. In the past months, we've heard you testify to the nation about what happened that day, what you were thinking of at the time it was happening, what you're thinking now, the threats, the violence, the savageness of what happened, the trauma, all real. And it's not exaggeration to say America owes you all. I really mean this. A debt of gratitude, one we can never fully repay unless we live up to what you did.
Then you have, compare that to Representative Rosendale trolling Kevin McCarthy by saying that I'm going to vote for Kevin. Play this clip.
Rosendale.
Kevin.
Hearn. Jeffries.
And here is Gates and other Republicans just screaming at each other, or another Republican screaming at Gates. Play this clip.
I believe that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position of Speaker of the House because he raised $500 million to get Republicans elected.
The gentleman is not recognized.
There you have that. And here we have like George Santos becoming friends with Marjorie Taylor Greene. We have a photo of that. We could pull that up. Or yeah, we have George Santos and Marjorie Taylor Greene, MAGA Republicans having a good old time. You got George Santos, who lied that his mom died in 9/11, then lied that his mom was a survivor of 9/11, then lied that his dad was a survivor of 9/11, and then lied that 4 of his employees were survivors of the Pulse nightclub shooting, and then lied that he went to Baruch College, and then lied that he worked at Citigroup, and then lied that he worked at Goldman Sachs, and then lied that he was a property owner, and then lied that he has a nonprofit, and then lied that he is wealthy, and then lied that he is not a wanted fugitive from Brazil, and then lied that he had brain cancer that he was a survivor from, then lied that he went to NYU Business School, and then lied that he was an investor in a lot of Trump enterprises. I could go on, but and he lied about his wife. I can go on and on and on about George Santos, and I enjoy following the chats when people say, well, George Santos invented clapping, and it's hilarious, but, well, it is hilarious, but to watch this unfold, it's why you can't have shows, frankly, like Veep anymore, because the MAGA Republican Party, the depths of depravity, you can't script this. You got Donald Trump posting these memes of himself sticking his tongue out. He received one speaker vote yesterday by Matt Gaetz, lost miserably, but you have that going on. You have the people, MAGA Republicans, all screaming at each other on the floor. You have utter chaos. You got Santos, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene, you got Boebert, you got Gosar. And as I said, like, yes, like, it's funny to see the MAGA Republicans exposed like this. And there is an element like grab your popcorn and enjoy the show. You know, we are on day 4. We are in hour 3 today of our live coverage. We're on 13 of these roll call votes. I think in 1923, it went to 8 or 9 roll call votes. That was the last time in our history where a speaker wasn't selected on the first roll call vote right there. So a lot of chaos, a lot of pandemonium so far. We are hours and hours into this coverage, and it doesn't at least appear right now that McCarthy in any way is going to break those 6 holdouts who said that they are never, ever going to vote for McCarthy here. We have our handy dandy chart. We could pull it up right here for those following. 23 hours of of live coverage here. I mean, there were some breaks taken in between, but 23 hours of live coverage so far over the past 4 days. Let's show our handy chart. We will have to update this for the 13th roll call vote, although the only change in the 13th roll call vote is Andy roll call vote. That's the J right there. So that will go into the McConnell column in the 13th roll call vote. But then you have the 6 holdouts, of course. Biggs, you going to convince Biggs to vote for McCarthy? Boebert, you going to convince Boebert to vote for McCarthy? Crane, are you going to convince Crane, who's been hanging with them all day, to vote for McCarthy? Gaetz, are you going to convince Gaetz and Good? They've all been together. And then Rosendale, that crew is standing firm together. So are you going to be able to convince them? This is what Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat from California, said in a post. He goes, I don't know who will become speaker, but one thing just happened we should all celebrate. The Freedom Party is dead. The majority of them just flip-flopped on McCarthy. They got rolled, and I'm here for it, the flippers. And then he lists all of the individuals from the Freedom Party who said they were never going to support Kevin McCarthy, who did flip-flop and supported Kevin McCarthy in the 12th and now 13th roll call, but that leaves 6. And so how do those 6 who say they're never supporting Kevin McCarthy, will they be flipped? Will they be turned? What can you give them? And there's such bad blood in the water after everything that's been said starting on day 1, where you had Kevin McCarthy call out Matt Gaetz by name and say that Gaetz would rather have Hakeem Jeffries win than McCarthy. That happened on day 1. And it only got worse from there. You had Marjorie Taylor Greene go on the MAGA extremist echo chamber television shows and call out Boebert and call out Gaetz. You had Boebert on Hannity here. Do we have this clip of Boebert on Hannity where Hannity was yelling at Boebert and saying, well, who do you want to pick? Who do you want to pick? And Boebert was going back and forth with Hannity. You have Fox basically calling out the 20 holdouts. Let's play this clip of Boebert and Hannity.
You said complimentary things about President Trump, needs to tell Kevin McCarthy that, sir, you do not have the votes. It's time to withdraw. Let me turn the tables, Congresswoman. Kevin McCarthy has 203 votes. Your side has 20. So if I'm going to use your words and your methodology and your math, Isn't it time for you to pack it in and your side to pack it in, considering he has over 200 and you have 20?
Sean, I understand the frustration, I promise you, but
I'm not frustrated.
he does
You didn't
not have
answer
the
my
votes,
question.
and we are hearing from many people who are still voting with Kevin McCarthy, who are very supportive of what we're doing, and they're cheering us on. So there are more for us than are against us, and they are waiting for Kevin to cave.
Okay.
You know, the American people are certainly frustrated by.
I'm frustrated by you not answering a direct question. You said to President Trump, you said earlier today that President Trump needs to tell Kevin McCarthy, you don't have the votes.
We need to come up with a consensus candidate to elect a Speaker of the House.
You don't have the votes, and it's time to withdraw. He has 203. Your side has 20. Why is it time for him to withdraw and not you when he has so many more votes?
Well, Sean, he needs 218, and he does not have 218. We've been trying to work this out in private, as you said, for months. But Kevin McCarthy didn't even want to listen to us until his disappointing midterms. We all want a...
They're celebrating another loss.
Madam Clerk, I move that the House stand adjourned until 10 p.m. tonight.
The question now occurs on the motion of the gentleman from Louisiana. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Madam Clerk, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and noes will rise. A sufficient number hasn't risen. The yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device.
I think it's always just a funny concept in our political system that the group that shouts the loudest is presumed to be the winner, and then you have to do a count to see who will ultimately prevail. Clearly, there's more energy on the Salty. If you expect me to read that with my eyes, that one's going to be a bit difficult for the eyes of this guy right here. But I will do my best in a moment. I'll do my best in a moment. But I was saying that it is funny that you just by shouting, clearly there's more energy in the Democratic Party. That's why they shout it louder, although I think that the Republicans are going to have the vote here to adjourn. And so after going through the 13th roll call and losing, and the 12th roll call and losing, their plan is to adjourn until 10 p.m. at the night, and I suppose then, or 7 Pacific, to then try to strike a deal with the 6 individuals who are now the defectors. And so will they be able to cut a deal by 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific? But we will be, of course, doing the live coverage then as well. Will there be a Speaker of the House this evening? We will, of course, be covering that here on the MeidasTouch network. So as we look at the House floor right now, and we see the yays for adjourn, nays against adjourn, I would be surprised if McCarthy, just based on the defections at this point, should be significantly enough. The defections who went back to McCarthy or went to McCarthy for the first time should be sufficient to adjourn right here. So we will be following that and keeping you updated, of course, there. And one of the things to just reflect on as well is part of the deal that McCarthy made. Ralph Norman had already kind of discussed this, which was that to win his vote and the other defectors over, McCarthy would need to be willing to shut down the government and default on America's debt. And so, as Rex Chapman put it, Republicans made a deal behind closed doors to destroy your 401k, take away your Social Security, to take away your Medicare, to defund our troops. That is ultimately what is going to happen. We have probably 3 to 6 months before we get there, but that is the next debacle that we'll be covering. Salty, I appreciate the breaking that chart up for my eyes. Here is the most recent list after the 13th roll call vote that Kevin McCarthy lost. You have the 6 defectors remaining because in that last round, as you go to Andy Harris, you see that he voted for Jim Jordan in the 12th. He went for McCarthy in the 13th. As we're looking at these arrows right here, we've got Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gates, Good, and Rosendale. Right now, the magic number for McCarthy is 217 based on the absences. As we showed you, let's pull up this tweet of one of the Democratic members who had surgery, Representative David Trone. You may have seen only 211 votes for Hakeem Jeffries in the 12th roll call. That was because David Trone was in surgery. Back by 2 p.m., there he is in his hospital slippers and socks, causing the threshold for McCarthy to win to now be 217. That's an incredible, incredible sign of strength by the Democratic Party and by Representative Trone right there as well. But as we look, and we can pull up the split screen right now, you see the yays 185, the nays 182. This is a motion to adjourn, so not go to the 14th roll call vote yet. There's 10 minutes remaining. I would be surprised if the vote to adjourn did not prevail here. We've seen multiple other votes to adjourn, then to come back after the adjournment, only to adjourn again. But in each of the adjournment votes thus far, we have seen the Republicans being able to get that vote and to secure that vote right there. And so we are on our 4th day of historic coverage here on the MeidasTouch network. For all of those watching, if you are not already subscribed to the MeidasTouch network, hit the subscribe button right now. We are on our way to 1 million subscribers. Want to try to get there before April. That is our internal goal. So if you're not subscribed, it's free. Just look at your YouTube, see where it says subscribe, hit that button, and then you will be subscribed. You will see all of our daily videos. We do hot takes of breaking news throughout the day. For example, this morning, you should go through our library of videos after this and watch it, because we're always posting the breaking news there. So, for example, earlier this morning, we did a breaking news hit on special counsel Jack Smith arriving. There's Jack Smith arriving back in Washington, D.C. He was previously in The Hague, where he was recovering from a bicycling accident. He's still doing a lot of work. And we talked about in the breaking news hit how Jack Smith has arrived to a team of about 20 of the top DOJ lawyers who are already working on the criminal investigation of Donald Trump, as well as some lawyers from private practice working at the top law firms who left their private practice to specifically be part of this criminal investigation of Donald Trump with Jack Smith from Milwaukee County and Clark County, Nevada, and Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. A new trove of documents were produced in terms of communications with Trump's lawyers and Trump's advisors relating to election interference that have never been produced before. Jack Smith will get those, and Jack Smith has subpoenaed lots of other local and state election officials as well. So we do those breaking news hits that I think are critical. We keep you updated. And as Ron Filipkowski said, let's not forget all the other things that have taken place in the last 24 hours. Rudy Giuliani was sued for sexual harassment. A male staffer from Herschel Walker says he was groped in the genitals by Matt Schlapp, the head of CPAC. You have Kilmeade from Fox calling the Freedom Caucus insurrectionist. Sean Hannity is attacking Boebert. Ali is calling Marjorie Taylor Greene some pretty bad things, and McCarthy keeps on failing. You have Representative Mace calling Gates a fraud. You have Loomer calling Marjorie Taylor Greene Benedict Arnold. You have all of the quote unquote base, as Marjorie Taylor Greene likes to call it, turning on Marjorie Taylor Greene as she's become Team Kevin McCarthy. You got MAGA Republicans in complete disarray. Talking about what's going on in New York right now, the judge Arthur Engoron, presiding over the case brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James, has sent an email to Donald Trump's lawyers, Alina Habba and others, saying that he would be considering sanctioning them or will be sanctioning them. It's basically an order to show cause based on them filing frivolous motions in that case that's set for trial in October. So more sanctions against Alina Habba there. She was recently sanctioned close to $100,000 by a federal judge down in the Southern District of Florida. So some major updates there. The Biden administration filed its brief to try to protect the student loan forgiveness program with the United States Supreme Court. We've talked about how these Trump-appointed judges and MAGA judges have blocked Biden's ability to forgive student loan debt, claiming that the 2003 HEROES Act, which provides the Secretary of Education the ability to do that in certain emergency situations or in emergency situations. You've got the Supreme Court saying that, or the MAGA Republican court saying that utilizing that statute is inappropriate by the executive branch. New legislation must be passed in order to achieve that. And at the same time, you have the Supreme Court basically saying the opposite when it comes to Title 42 asylum expulsions and not allowing asylum seekers here in the United States, citing that a law, a health ordinance, Title 42, dating back over 100 years, based on the COVID pandemic, can be used for immigration policy. Not only that, but to force President Biden's hand. So as we see the yay votes at 216 and nay votes at 210, the yays will have it. There will be an adjournment. It's just waiting for the remaining time. But you see all 217 there. So you see essentially unanimity, all of the Republicans agreeing to adjourn, and they will use the next several hours before coming back at 10 p.m. And I wonder as well if strategically one of the reasons they're trying to pick 10 p.m. and it could equally affect them, because who's going to want to be there at 10 p.m. maybe is to try to see, by inconveniencing Democrats and inconveniencing certain members, can they force people who don't want to show up late at night to show up at that time, because it's a very inconvenient time as we head into the weekend to have to show up. And you know that while hardworking Americans work various hours and multiple shifts at all times, we know that these members of Congress don't exactly like working. So one of the tactics here and the games that could be trying to be played is by pushing the time till 10 p.m., trying to maybe have what happened earlier, where a Democrat was in surgery or a Democrat has to leave or something happens late at night. So I think that's part of the strategy here. We watch the remaining 3 minutes. Want to remind you as we watch it, if you want to support independent media like this, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Join one of the memberships there, because we take zero outside funding from investors. We don't have the billionaire and millionaire investors. That's how we remain 100% independent. Well, if I wasn't 100% independent, I wouldn't do this. But what enables us to keep doing this with the great research, with our incredible staff, with our incredible team, is our Patreon site, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. become a member there, and you could check out store.MeidasTouch.com for some of the best MeidasTouch gear. I always love it when people tag me on Twitter and I get to see people wearing the MeidasTouch gear out and about. And I've even been in a few places in public and I've seen the MeidasTouch gear. We had the Rowvember shirts, the Row Your Vote shirts, the Convict 45 shirts, just the classic Meidas tees, the classic MeidasTouch hats, some really funny and cool mugs. Check out store.MeidasTouch.com. Again and again, that allows us to fund the operations that we do here. And we are on day 4, Speaker of the House, vote, roll call. Number 13, Kevin McCarthy has lost, heading into the 14th roll call vote. I suppose Kevin McCarthy has made progress in the 12th and 13th roll call vote. Went from 21 defectors down to 7 defectors, now down to 6 defectors in the most recent round, with Representative, go back up and pull the list so we can show everybody specifically where to look for this, as Representative Andy Harris went for McCarthy in the 13th round and went for Jim Jordan. This is a chart. If you want to take a screenshot of this chart, if you want to write this down, we will keep it, from the days where, I don't know, when you used to go to a baseball game, you used to get the magazine where you would keep track of the scores. And I used to do that as a kid. I forget what it's even called right now. But as a kid, I would always do that. I haven't gone to a baseball game in a while. I should go to a baseball game after all of this. But if you're keeping track, you may want to take a screenshot of it, or the old-fashioned way, just write it down, because here is what we are looking for as we head into this almost certain adjournment. Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gates, Good, and then Rosendale, with Harris now on the side of McCarthy. So 6 defectors remaining, all using very strong language that they will never support Kevin McCarthy. But will they break? Will they fold? Or rather, will Kevin McCarthy break and fold even more? While he's out there, in his nervous laughter, or whatever you want to even say, whatever the heck that was that we watched, he has already sold out this country. He's already sold his own soul. Frankly, he did that. Pull up the photo of him in Mar-a-Lago. He sold his soul, relating to the January 6th insurrection. He sold his soul. 2 traitors, 2 despicable human beings, 2 fascists right there. This is after January 6th, where Kevin McCarthy gave comfort to Donald Trump and Donald Trump's fascism. Go back to the House floor now as we see the remaining seconds tick down on the adjournment. Let's go to this. Let's go to the clerk.
Elect wish to change a vote? On this vote, the yeas are 220, the nays are 212. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 p.m. tonight.
So there you have it. And as predicted, the adjournment succeeded. The question will remain, will those 6 defectors, or any grouping of those 6 defectors, as of now, McCarthy needed 217. We'll see if that number changes based on absences or what have you, and we'll keep you posted if that number becomes different. But will that group of defectors break? Will that group of defectors continue to vote against McCarthy? Will they vote for McCarthy? All we can say for certain is that we will be back at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific this evening to cover this live. Want to give a special thanks to Salty. Let's put those salt emojis, our incredible producer who's been working around the clock right here. Special thanks to Salty. And I want to give a real special shout out to everybody watching this. None of this is possible without you. And I think this is the way a media network should be, because frankly, It's your media network. I'm 100% accountable to you. And the way we do this is through Patreon, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. That's how we avoid any special interest or billionaires or decamillionaires with agendas. And so this is a crowd-funded media network that doesn't just compete with the large media networks. There are more people who watch this stream than watch on large media networks in total. And that's because of you. That's because what you create. It's because of the energy that exists in the chat room. It's that inspiration which inspires me each and every day. And I watch what goes on in the chat room too. I love it. I get a kick out of it when you do the George Santos jokes. I love the emojis. I love the passion, and I love the ideas. And sometimes I'm looking in the chat room to find some great points that you're making to speak about and to be very interactive in this process. So as we close out this live broadcast, I'll tell you to make sure you hit the subscribe button. Check through the MeidasTouch YouTube videos. Click on some of them. I think you'll enjoy the breaking news feature. Check out store.MeidasTouch.com. Check out patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I think you'll enjoy that there. And again, to wrap up, this is the 4th day of coverage here. We have finished the 13th roll call vote. There are 6 defectors who remain. The Republican Party has voted to adjourn until 10 p.m. tonight to see if a deal can be worked out with those MAGA extremists. It's group one of MAGA extremists working with another group of even more MAGA extremists, see if they're going to cut a deal, maybe to sell our entire country to Vladimir Putin and Russia. We'll see what they come up with. Maybe McCarthy will agree that he could be punched in the face every day before work by Matt Gaetz, or we'll see what the deal is. Some version of that. Maybe McCarthy will start the day getting waterboarded. That could be part of the package that McCarthy is offering. We will see. But we will be back here, of course, with more live coverage at 10 Eastern, at 7 Pacific this evening. Make sure to check out our live stream then. And in the meantime, check out other MeidasTouch content. I know you will love it. Comment on Twitter. Share the news about this channel with everybody, with friends, family, coworkers. Let them know this is where they can get their news now, a news station for you and created for you and championed by you. That is something that I think is so important. So for now, I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe, share, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, store.MeidasTouch.com. I will see you this evening at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. Special shout out to the Meidas Mighty.